If there's one thing you should know about Jennifer Webb, it was that she was extremely loved. Jennifer was described as a bright and bubbly woman who saw the good in everything and everyone. In home videos her mother would share via Facebook, Jennifer was always making people laugh, and always trying to find the humor in everything that was happening. Her mother would go further to say that Jennifer was like a magnet, always attracting people to her. Friends would state that you could always tell what room Jenny was in, because it would be the most crowded room at the party. People just genuinely seemed to enjoy her. She was fearless and extremely outgoing, often going out of her way to talk to everyone, and it seemed like no matter where she went, she had friends. People would describe meeting her for the first time and feeling as if she had always been in their lives. Within seconds, you would have some inside joke with her, or at least feel like she understood you in a way that you might have been missing otherwise. She could put anyone at ease with her sense of humor, and all those who would remember her would state that she was just a bright light in their life. In every report given around the case, special emphasis is placed onto what a lovely, kind-hearted person she was, with various friends giving their own specific examples of how she made their lives better. In 2011, the 32-year-old would shock her friends and family by telling them that she was pregnant. She hadn't been seeing anyone in any official capacity, and she had only discovered the pregnancy when she was already 5 months along. After discovering her pregnancy, Jenny decided that she would be keeping the baby, and was incredibly excited to become a mother. She had an amazing job, had recently bought a home, and after finding out the sex of the baby, settled on the name Braxton. When asked who was the father of the unborn child, Jennifer told her parents that it was a man she had known for over 10 years at that point. Once more, her parents were surprised by this information, given the fact that the man she named was a married police officer. Jenny relayed to her friends what he had told her, which was that his marriage had become strained, that they were separated, and were beginning the process of divorce. She assured them that she hadn't had sex with a married man, and went further to say that she didn't want to be in a relationship with him. She wanted him to be somewhat involved in the child's life, repeatedly stating that children benefit from having two parents. However, he was incredibly resistant to that. He argued that he had just started the divorce process, and having a child outside of the marriage so quickly would no doubt lead to speculation about infidelity. His wife could insist that he had carried on a relationship with Jenny for longer than he had, and used their 10-year friendship as proof of that. In most states, if the spouse can prove the other is at fault for the divorce, the division of property and assets can change, meaning that if Kenneth's soon-to-be ex-wife found out about the pregnancy, she could easily use that information in the divorce proceedings to her benefit. Jenny would tell her friends that all she wanted from Kenneth was some child support, and for him to put his name on the birth certificate, but that the father was extremely opposed to that. On the evening of August 31st, 2011, Jennifer told her friend that she was going to be seeing the father of her unborn child to discuss the matter further. As she left her friend's home, she agreed to come over the next day to help her look after her kids, and seemed in good spirits, and that would be the last time she was seen alive. Welcome back to another episode of Dreading, or if this is your first time here, welcome. Today we are going to be reviewing the case of Jennifer Webb, and how her murderer believed that her death would end all of his problems. Thankfully, he was wrong. This video was requested for us to cover early on in the channel's tenure, and became a popular request after we covered the Jessica Boynton case, as they both have to do with cops misusing their badges in order to hurt their intimate partners, specifically by framing them for their own murders. If everything goes to plan, this case should be the final upload as part of our Halloween celebration, where we upload every weekday in the final week of October. Originally, we had another part 2 video that we were working on as a sort of finale. However, due to some of our research being taken down by the Internet Archive outage, we will have to wait until we can post those, but hopefully everything else will go smoothly. While remaining consistent with our uploads has been a bit of a challenge, we've had an amazing time, and are currently planning the next time that we can do this. So look out next month, when we have a Dreadsgiving celebration. I think that's a pretty good pun. And hopefully by that time, we'll be able to do our part 2 finale. But knowing our luck, it probably won't happen. But we'll see. As always, if there's a video you would like to see on the channel, or a case you want more attention brought to, you can always email me at dreading.official@gmail.com. We go through our emails daily, and though it will take us a bit of time, we plan on covering all the requests that we can. So, with all of that said, let us begin. Just a few hours after Jennifer had left her friend Andrea's home, she would be found deceased next to her car on the side of the road. The scene was strange, as it appeared that Jenny had hung herself from the luggage rack of her car using an extension cord. She was sitting on the ground on the side of her car, with the extension cord wrapped around her neck, and was leaning forward. This would have meant that she had the full capability of saving herself at any moment prior to losing consciousness, and that there wouldn't have been enough pressure on the cord to end her life quickly. Any person choosing to end their own life in this manner is strange, but for Jenny it made no sense. She was excited about the next chapter of her life, excited to meet her first child, and she had spent the last 3 months preparing her home and life for the new addition. While she wasn't sure what to do about her son's father, she had a village of friends and family willing to help her through any difficulties, and she felt secure in that. She had made plans for the following days, was purchasing new items, and was in no position to take her own life, much less take her life in such a strange way. The scene would be discovered by Buena Vista Township Officer Kenneth Blue, followed shortly thereafter by Officer Tim Patterson. Blue had arrived on the scene long before Patterson, and was about to call it in when the other officer arrived. He then approached Tim and asked him how he wanted to tackle the scene. As they approached the unsettling scene, they both looked over Jennifer's body. Neither of them knew the woman, and so they began to process the scene. Officer Blue approached the vehicle and immediately grabbed Jenny's purse and managed to find a small folded piece of paper that seemed somewhat out of place in the disorganized bag. He then began to read the typed note out loud to his companion. It read, "To all my friends and family, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for everything. I feel like my entire life has fallen down around me. This pregnancy, the robberies, the trial, the overwhelming feeling that I've let everyone important around me down. I've lied to so many people lately that it's hard to see the truth anymore. I've ruined my life and could potentially ruin a lot more lives by continuing to lie and hide from the truth. I feel like a failure in my job. I can't even support myself. Then I have a baby on the way that I can't support either. These robberies have me terrified and the trial scared me to death. Deep down, I think I lied about the father of this baby because I didn't want my family to think I was a whore who just slept around. Not that saying a married man is the father is any better, I guess, but who knows? Hell, he doesn't even know anything about this other than I'm pregnant. I couldn't tell him. I guess I just wanted to come clean with everything. I slept with a guy I met at the bar one night. All I know is that his name was Chris. I'm sorry I lied. I just didn't want to look bad in the eyes of my family. I'm afraid. Afraid to live in my own home. Afraid to live with this baby. Afraid to live in my own skin. These robberies have me so shaken. Here I am so young and can't live in my own home because I'm too scared. Pregnant with a child I can't support and don't know who the father is. And now living without a home to call my own and not really any way to afford a new one. Life has spiraled out of control for me, and I can't find a way out. I'm sorry. Sorry that I've hurt so many people that I care about. I just can't keep putting on a happy, excited face when I'm scared to death and totally depressed. I've spent the past several months trying to convince myself that I was okay with this pregnancy, but I'm not. I want to be excited, but I can't. I never wanted to be a mother before I was married. I never wanted a child who didn't have a father to know. I don't even know the father. What am I going to tell him? Sorry, son, mommy doesn't know who your daddy is. That just sounds great. There's no way I can do that. I can't bring a child into the world that way. I'm so sorry I can't do this. Please know that I love you all so much, and I know this is going to hurt you. I'm sorry. This is the only way. I love you, and I'm sorry, Jenny. After reading the note, Kenny continued to go through the deceased woman's items, finding her wallet and ID. It was then he told Patterson that he knew the deceased. He informed the other officer that she was just a casual acquaintance, that he had seen her out and about at bars over the years, but no one that he was outstandingly close to. He stated that he hadn't recognized her at first, given that he was used to seeing her in a different social setting, which is a fairly stupid excuse, as most people would still recognize a friend's dead body, even though they were used to seeing that person alive. Patterson seemingly blew this comment off, believing that Kenneth only vaguely knew her. The pair continued to process the scene, with Blue taking the crime scene photos. Though the scene was strange, it appeared to be a cut-and-dry suicide. It was only when the police went to inform Jenny's family that the alarm bells began to go off. When the police told Jenny's mother that her daughter had committed suicide, she told them that there was no way her daughter would have done that. They told her that she had left a typed note, going over her reasoning, but she continued to push back, telling Crime Watch Daily that had her daughter actually committed suicide, she would have handwritten a note for everyone in her life, telling them how much she loved them. She would have used glitter pens in her favorite colors, and would have made sure that everyone she was close to got their own. She also stated that the note didn't sound like her daughter. It was overly formal in a manner that Jenny simply wasn't. She never would have called herself a whore, or felt ashamed to share her fears and anxiety with her family and friends. Jennifer knew that she had a support system around her, and knew that even in her darkest moments, they would be there to help her carry the load. But whoever wrote this note seemed to think differently. Jennifer's family and friends insisted that she hadn't killed herself, that whoever killed her had staged the scene to look like a suicide, and left a note in order to disguise the crime. Their continued assertions piqued the officers' interest, and they were asked to come into the station in order to answer some more questions about their daughter. At this point, the police generally didn't know if there was a case here or not. All the crime scene evidence seemed to indicate that this was a suicide, and it seemed reasonable that her family members were just in denial. They were grieving, but would slowly come around to knowing that their daughter had taken her own life. However, after asking one question, their opinion completely changed. In their interview, Jennifer's friends and family members were asked if they knew who the father of the unborn child was, and they said yes. It was Kenneth Blue, the officer who had allegedly discovered the crime scene and found her body. Almost immediately, the Buena Vista Township Police Department knew that the crime scene had been staged, and one of their own had been responsible. They knew Kenneth and had worked alongside him for years at that point, and if he was the father of Jenny's child, he had motive enough to kill her, especially since he was never getting a divorce. He had simply told Jennifer that because she wouldn't have consented to have an affair with a married man. It would seem that he was the only person who had motive enough to want her out of the picture, and upon closer inspection of the note, it seemed more centered around exonerating him than it did justifying her decision to end her own life. Almost the entirety of the document is spent saying that she had lied about the father of her unborn son, that it wasn't the unidentified married man, and it was just some guy that she met once, because she was used to sleeping around. It went further to label the child as being a sort of destructive force that would ruin her life, something that was not true for her, but was true for Kenneth. As a married man, he would no doubt view the pregnancy and life of his child as being antithetical to the status quo of his day-to-day life. His marriage would likely be ended by this discovery. His wife would be able to get a significant amount of child support and alimony, and it would just be easier for him if Jenny and the baby disappeared. The Buena Vista Township Police knew that any investigation done into the crime by them would be tainted by their affiliation with the suspect, and called in the Michigan State Police to take over the case immediately. However, by that point, the crime scene had already been disturbed, with the car having been towed and Jennifer's body removed. Moreover, all the crime scene evidence that they had brought in was voided, given that Kenneth had been the one to collect it and take photos at the scene. By the time Michigan State Police arrived, they would be starting at ground zero. Still, they returned to the scene and did their best to try and find any outstanding evidence that had been left behind. And surprisingly, one of the forensic scientists at the scene was able to find 3 pieces of evidence, nearly 200 feet away from the crime scene: a cigarette butt, a charm that had been forcefully removed from a necklace, and a small drop of blood. Though these things could be unrelated, they were collected and tested immediately. They also went so far as to collect Officer Blue's patrol vehicle, where they found a chokehold manual in the front seat. Kenneth was well known for his chokeholds, and even taught new recruits the method, but he had no reason to have the manual in his car that night. As the MSP continued to look over the details of the case, they found something strange. In the hours that preceded the discovery of the crime scene, Kenneth hadn't been responding to anyone on the police radio. In fact, Patterson had driven out of the area Jennifer's body had been discovered in, because it was where Kenneth often went to sleep on the job. If you recall, Kenneth was the one to discover the scene, but he had been on his own and hadn't called it in by the time Patterson arrived, meaning that for nearly an hour and 30 minutes, Kenneth was unaccounted for, and when he was finally found, he had seemingly just happened upon the dead body of his pregnant mistress, who he claimed not to know, in an area that he was known to frequent. Patterson also went further to state that Kenneth was out of breath and sweaty when he arrived, as if he had just been working out or engaged in some physical activity. If he had, as he stated, just arrived on the scene, why hadn't he answered his police radio? If he had just been driving, why was he out of breath? If he had had an intimate sexual relationship with the victim, why hadn't he at least recognized her vehicle? They also found that in the hours prior to Jennifer's supposed suicide, she had called Ken's phone 3 times, and his number was saved under the contact Ken Cop Boo. The more the state police looked into the case in front of them, the more obvious it became that the officer was lying to them and had a hand in Jennifer's demise. But as part of the original police investigation, Ken tried to keep his eyes on top of the Michigan State Police. He attempted to make his interest look innocent, like he was just another officer wanting to help move things along, even returning to the crime scene that same night to see if state police needed any assistance. He had been the reason they were called in, as his involvement could taint the case, but he returned anyways. 9 hours after Jennifer's body was found, Kenneth would sit down for an interview with the state's police. At the time of uploading, we will have posted this footage sans our commentary in an unlisted video. I will be making the video public soon, but I didn't want to cause confusion with which upload is me talking, and which is just the raw interrogation footage. So if you're uninterested in our commentary, a version without it is in the description box down below. At the time of the interview, Kenneth had just murdered his mistress and staged the scene to look like a suicide. His relationship with the victim was now known to the detectives, but he had already seemingly debunked those allegations in the typed suicide note he had left on her person. And because he has since been isolated away from the state's police investigation, he has no idea what exactly they know about his involvement with Jennifer in the case. Despite going out of his way to ensure that he was not the focus of the investigation, he has already failed. But he doesn't quite know that. In his mind, all he has to do is continue the narrative he created in the suicide note, that being that Jennifer was just a loose acquaintance, that he has no idea why she would tell anyone else that he was the father of her child, and that he just happened upon a crime scene moments before Officer Patterson, and he likely believes that because he is a fellow officer, that he will simply be believed, or at the very least, be given the benefit of the doubt, while also be able to observe the strategies used when officers have to speak to other officers. In previous interrogation reviews that we've done, there's a certain amount of table setting that takes place prior to the actual questioning. People tend to be more open and honest with those they feel comfortable with, and it's only after that they feel at ease that the officers will begin to ramp up the tension. Blue was very likely aware of these techniques, and one might assume that he wouldn't fall victim to them. Let's see if that's the case.
Come on in. All right.
What's up, Al?
Hey, Bud. How are you? Good. I think we may have met years ago. Jason Teddy, I trooped in Bay City. And
Yeah.
Met all that crap.
Yep, that sounds familiar.
I've been in this building probably 15 years.
Oh, this is this building. Let's see, I started here in 99, I want to say maybe 95-ish.
Okay.
Sometime 95 to 2000. 95 to 99. Like that.
Ken, is your first name Ken or Kenneth?
Kenneth.
Thank you.
Comes in all the time.
It's ETH.
Okay. Middle?
Middle name?
Yeah.
TWYMAN.
How do you spell your last?
BLUEW.
Okay, your date of birth. What's a phone number I can reach you at? Cell?
Yep.
Is that department or person? All right. I'm sure you know the deal here. Al and I were called down just to assist with this scene. We got to talk to everybody, you know what's happening.
Absolutely.
You're probably going to have some questions for us too, and I'll do my best to answer them.
Been through this game a few times, so.
Yeah, I'm sure you
I
have.
was a detective for almost 5 years, so.
So it's nothing new to you, and I
Sure.
appreciate the fact that you know what the deal is, and you know we're just going through the motions here.
Immediately, the Michigan State Police attempts to alleviate any anxiety that Blue might have been feeling after being asked to speak with them. They maintain that they are just going to be asking him the standard questions since he knew the victim, that this is basically a simple formality for their own investigation, and that he essentially has nothing to worry about. Obviously, that is not true, but Kenneth would immediately end the interview if he was aware of all the evidence against him that they had been able to compile in the few hours it's been since they were called in. If he believes that he is a suspect so early on, he will likely end the interview and contact his attorney. Once again, should you, the viewer, ever be brought into police custody and questioned, it is always in your best interest to contact a lawyer. The police are trying to solve a case. That is their priority. Meanwhile, it's a lawyer's priority to protect you, their client. While the police may try to imply guilt by talking to a lawyer or imply that you are hindering their investigation, protecting yourself from false accusations should be paramount. We've researched far too many cases where the police have pinned the blame on innocent people and have ignored direct evidence that exonerated them. And most of these cases start with an interview just like this one. Of course, I hope none of you watching go on to kill someone and use this advice, but you should know your rights and feel justified using them. Back to what we were saying before. The The Michigan State Police detectives also spend the first few moments talking about how they could have met previously, establishing a sort of bond between them. The priority here is that he feels comfortable enough to talk to them so they can use his own statements against him later on. Should he give a version of events that they can prove is untrue, it can be used against him later on in this interrogation, and further down the road in court. What he says here can be the difference between a first or second-degree murder charge, and they want to get as much information out of him as possible. Despite having killed Jennifer less than 9 hours earlier, Kenneth's goal here is to appear as innocent as possible, even if that means doing something antithetical to his continued freedom. Him talking to the police here is a stupid idea, but he knows that the police and the general public find lack of cooperation by a suspect suspicious. If he talks to the police, he's just being a good guy. Kenneth takes the opportunity to inform them that he understands, specifically because he used to do their job. In a sense, he's telling them that he knows what they are up to, because he has been on the other side of the table and knows all their strategies.
In any case like this, especially because you were done at 6, right?
Yes.
Okay. I am gonna read you Miranda, just as a matter of protocol. And I'm sure you're aware of them, but you know I gotta read them.
Yep.
You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him present with you before or during any questioning. If you want a lawyer but cannot afford one will be appointed to represent you at public expense. If you waive your right to remain silent, later wish to stop answering questions, questions will stop. If you waive your right to have a lawyer present, later change your mind, the question will stop till you talk to the lawyer. Do you understand these rights?
I do.
Okay. Are you willing to give up these rights and talk to me?
I am.
Okay. And it's, again, just a formality, you know, basically.
Okay. Is that gonna do it all the time? Man, you are one important dude.
Yeah, it's probably a good idea.
I'm just playing now.
Yeah.
Just messing around.
Kenneth is working overtime in order to appear not fazed by the situation that he's found himself in. He's being interviewed about his mistress, who he murdered mere hours beforehand, and he's laughing while pointing out how important the lead investigator must be for his phone to go off repeatedly. We can't say if this is a genuine reflection of his feelings or not, but either he is sincerely not nervous or trying his hardest to appear that way. Either way, it's relatively strange, given the circumstances. This is something that we've seen in countless interrogations that we've covered, where a guilty party attempts to appear nonplussed during the interrogation in order to seem innocent. But any rational person would feel upset about the situation, which is why interrogators usually dedicate an hour or more to putting the interviewee at ease.
I'll shut mine up too, so we can all behave.
Oops. This damn thing, I can't even make sense of half of it.
It's terrible when you're that important, huh?
I need to go back to one of those, simple phones.
That's what I got. Nice and easy.
Half the shit on here, I don't know how to use.
Great.
Basically, can you kind of run down, just tell me what happened tonight, what's going on here?
I was conducting general patrol. I'd been up in the area of the North Number Streets. We call them North Number Streets. It's area north of Wadsworth. Been in there a little bit patrolling around. I sat at 81 and outer for a while, working on the radar. And then there's a neighborhood to the north of 81, north of 81, west of outer. Little neighborhood back in there. I went back in there and kind of drove over, just general patrol. Come out onto Outer Drive, went north, took a pass through the businesses on Freeway Lane, and then come out and went north again up to where we have our range. As I started to pull up, I saw the vehicle sitting there. I hit it with my spotlight real quick to see if I could see heads moving or popping up. Sometimes we get parkers up there and whatnot. I didn't see anybody move, so I went up, I turned, and then I turned back or turned around. It goes, Outer Drive ends, you guys were up there. There's that little drive there that leads to our range, and then that drive over there that leads over to the wastewater treatment plant. So I go up, turn around so that I can get a better angle on the car. So I drive in behind the car, focus the spotlight, and about that time, Tim's pulling up.
Kenneth begins to detail the crime scene as if he happened upon it, but notably does not share what he was doing the hour and a half prior to arriving on the scene when he wasn't responding on the police radio. Instead, he says he was on a general patrol, which we know that cannot be true. Kenneth is banking on the idea that his fellow officers will keep his hours-long absence to themselves, or simply determine that it is not important enough to share with the MSP. However, given that they were immediately called in after his involvement with the victim was made known to them, that is a vital error. We're only 4 minutes into his interrogation, and he has already lied.
So, we kind of looked at him, he kind of looked at me and says, what do you think? He says, oh no. So he started walking up from where he was at, because he was still on outer drive. He was walking up towards the passenger side of the car, and I started to walk kind of towards the driver's side corner. And as I got closer, I saw the door open, the back driver's door was open. Took a few more steps, and I saw her laying on the ground. I saw the cord running to the top of the car. Oh my gosh. I yelled at Tim real quick. I said, hey, we got a body. Well, I took a step back. He come around the corner. He come around the car. He took a look. Oh, shit. So away we went. We started doing our thing. And then Tim got a hold of Sean, and they started, so Sean said, I didn't tape it off, do your thing, get some photos. So I started taking photographs. Went all the way around the car, and then, took a couple shots of the inside of the car, keys and ignition. It didn't look like it was in disarray too much. Purse was laying there, so pulled the purse out to ID the driver, and as I did, when I set the purse on the hood, the first thing I see was a folded up piece of paper. Okay. So I unfolded the paper and I read it. It was an obvious suicide note, and it was signed Jenny. It was all typed out. There was no writing on it, no ink on it. It was just all typed.
As Kenneth just noted, the obvious suicide note was typed, which Jenny's friends and family said was outside of her character. Though there's undoubtedly cases where a typed suicide note is left behind, that is incredibly impersonal and fairly rare. The choice to leave a note after death is a large one that the person struggling with their mental health often thinks heavily about. Most often, a typed suicide note would indicate feelings of isolation and abandonment, feeling as if no one would care and that it is mostly a formality. But Jenny didn't have that. She was extremely connected and extremely loved. But continuing on.
Set that aside, went through the purse, found the wallet, opened the wallet up, went through the wallet, found the ID, and at that point I went, oh shit, I know this girl. So I stepped away, I looked at Tim, I said, I know this girl. I said, I know her. So I kind of just stepped back at that point and let everybody else take and do what they needed to do. Sean showed up, and the rest is history. Here we are.
That is not what occurred. Again, all the photographs that were taken at the scene were taken by Officer Blue, both before and after he stated he knew her. He actively downplayed how well he knew her, leading the other officers present at the scene to believe that it was just a passing thing. Had he informed them that she was carrying his child, that he had spent the past few months lying to her about the status of his marriage so that he could sleep with her, and that she had told her friends that she planned to meet up with him that night to determine if she would put his name down as the father of her unborn child, they would have removed him from the scene immediately, but he didn't do that.
Tim called Sean?
Yes.
Okay. How long did it take him to get out there?
Tim or Sean?
Sean.
God, I couldn't tell you. 45 minutes maybe.
I guess what I'm asking is, you guys had a chance to secure everything at that point and started processing what you could.
Correct. We taped it off. Tim grabbed tape, taped it all off. I did the photos, and then once that was done, we just kind of stepped back and waited for Sean. Wait for the detective to get there and turn it over to him.
The photos and stuff are those ones that were all turned over to Sean?
Correct.
Ken, you said the back door was open. Was it ajar?
No, it was wide open.
Wide open? Okay.
There were no interior lights on, but the back door was open.
Okay.
say, four-door car, driver's door, rear door.
Mhm.
All the other doors are closed except for the back door,
Okay,
not the hatch, though.
yeah, the side door and the back.
There you go.
Okay.
When you were going out there, you said you were in the neighborhoods and stuff. Do you see any other cars in the area or anything? Especially outer, it's kind of dead ends.
Right, there's not usually a lot of traffic up there. We will get the occasional parkers up there. We will get the occasional dumpers, scrap dumpers and trash dumpers and stuff like that. We've got, there's actually a notice out to keep an eye on the whole north end, because people are just dumping everywhere. But the businesses there on Freeway Lane, there's 3 or 4. There's one up on the hill and a couple in the back. I mean, they're all, it's just a normal route. It's just part of general patrol. Just checking the businesses. Making sure that everything is clean and clear. And then one of the businesses up there is kind of like a truck dock, so there's traffic in and out. So seeing traffic on Outer Drive is not usually cause for concern on that side of town, because not only do you have those businesses, but just a step down, then you've got the Wolverine Human Services, the juvenile prison. So seeing traffic, but now once you get up north of there, there's nothing else up there but the wastewater treatment plant and then our secure range. So.
Okay. About what time was it that you were up there?
When I found the car, when I was up patrolling?
Yes.
It was just before we found the car. I mean, literally, it was, I did the neighborhoods, I did Freeway, and went north. Tim and I don't remember seeing him, but we must have had the same idea, because he did virtually the same thing I did.
Okay.
I do know, I know that he come off of, I don't know whether or not he checked the neighborhoods or not, but I know he went over and checked the businesses off a Freeway before he came north.
Again, Tim had been looking for Kenneth. He wasn't on his usual patrol, just surveying the area. And an hour and a half of not hearing from Kenneth over the police radio, he believed that his fellow officer had gone to the spot he frequently used to sleep on the clock. He went up to that area because he knew Kenneth liked it.
Like I said, we pulled on. I had enough time to get up there, see the car, spotlight it quick, and turn around, and he was pulling up.
How long was Tim up there? Was he out patrolling the neighborhoods and stuff too?
I don't know. Never saw him.
Where's Freeway Drive? I'm not familiar with that.
It's north of the juvenile prison.
Going to the expressway, goes into
Yep.
the east,
Yep, that's the only way it goes.
and there's businesses in there?
Yeah, when you guys drove up there, I don't know if you paid attention or not, but when you drive up there, the prison's here, and then there's like a trucking terminal. There's a business behind it. It's a new business. It's Michigan Recovery, the repossession company.
Oh, okay.
And then up on the hill is TCI Tire.
And they're all off this Freeway
All
Drive?
off Freeway Drive.
And you had driven in and around those
Yes.
businesses? Okay.
Actually passed the truck driver.
Okay. And then right from there up to the end of our,
So in that general area, you were up there a matter of a few minutes, or were you up there half hour doing property checks and patrols, or?
All inclusive, probably, I don't know, 45 minutes to an hour.
Okay. And during that time, you never saw any traffic going down that way?
No, never saw any traffic coming southbound.
Okay.
So, when I pulled into the freeway there was a semi-truck parked, cab light on, guy walking around, so.
you talked to him or just saw him?
No, I drove by, drove around, saw him, I
Probably
just
used
kept
to
driving.
see him there.
They're up there all the time, so.
Was there any calls going out in that area around that time?
No.
Okay, so pretty quiet.
Yeah.
This is a lie. We already know there were calls going out because that's how they noticed that Kenneth wasn't responding to any. Kenneth is banking on the fact that he thinks his fellow officers will back his account up, even though that isn't aligned with the facts. And there have been cases where that is true. Thankfully, this is not one of them.
You said when you first pulled down there, you saw the vehicle. Did you light it up right away, or was it just your headlights that were
Just
on?
the headlights at first until I got within, I guess, spotlight range.
Okay.
You know, it was probably, if I had to guess, maybe 6, 8 car lengths, 10 car lengths, something like that, when I turned the spotlight on.
And that was before you turned around?
Yeah.
Where did you turn around at? Right at the
I
end
went,
of
no,
the
I
road?
went down, I went to the left, over the tracks, and it opens up over there, because if you go to the right, that's how you get to wastewater treatment. So I spun around real quick, drove back over the tracks and pulled up.
Okay, I've never been down in there to the left to know what's down there.
And then you came up behind the vehicle?
Yeah. Well, like I say, when I pulled up, the vehicle's parked here. I would come in, I spotlighted it this way, drove around, did my loop, and I came up and I stopped here because I saw Tim pulling in. So I stopped here, my spotlight on the car, he spotlighted the car, and we both get out and walk up.
So this detail is interesting because it appears that Kenneth was caught while he was attempting to leave the scene. He was in the middle of turning his car around on the dead-end road when Tim pulled up to the location, and he was forced to begin processing the scene that he had staged. He likely hoped that he could leave and pretend that he hadn't been in that area when the body was discovered, but his own absence caused it to be discovered prematurely. On a side note, you may notice that the two interrogators have a tendency to go quiet after Ken is done talking. They don't pepper him with questions or move on terribly quickly. Instead, they sit, note what he says, and then wait a few moments more. If you watch most media at 2 times speed, this kind of pausing might feel awkward and strange, and that is why it's done. When you converse with another person, moments of quiet feel uncomfortable, even if they are there for valid reasons. Most people try to fill in gaps, as it were, and will take the quiet as a sign that they have made some social faux pas. In this environment, it encourages the interviewee to talk more, to give up more information, and often creates a sense of stress and anxiety. Did they say something wrong? Did they accidentally make themselves look more guilty? Do I need to justify why I felt or said that? These are all things that would be buzzing around their minds as they sit uncomfortably, waiting for the other person to speak. Again, Ken knows this. He's been on the other side of the table, and it doesn't necessarily appear to be affecting him yet. So let's continue.
And during that time, as you were approaching and you were lighting it up, you didn't see anybody around or anything like that? Okay. You said no interior lights were on in the car? Were the headlights on or anything?
No.
Was it running?
No.
Do you remember checking to see if it was warm, if it had been running, or would it look like it
When
been for a while?
Yeah, after we got the initial, after we found her and got the whole scene taped off, after I took my pictures, when I removed the purse and set it on the hood, I felt the hood. And, felt that it was fairly warm. I mean, it was warm. I wouldn't say it was screaming hot.
When was the last time prior to this that you were up checking that area?
Today I haven't.
Okay. You know if anybody else checked it today?
How many people were working? Just you and Tim?
It was me and Tim came out at 10 o'clock. It was me and Sarah.
Oh, okay.
It was me and Sarah until 10. And then,
You guys work 12-hour shifts?
we work 12s, but Mondays and Tuesdays we have a short day, so we stay at the 80 hours instead of 84.
Okay, so what was your shift last
My
night?
shift was 6 to 6.
6 to 6.
Yeah, my short day was Monday.
I don't think I know Sarah, what's her name?
Sylvester.
Also working 6 to 6.
She was actually, I believe, working 12 to 12.
Oh.
She was working a modified shift because she was doing some code enforcement stuff. 12 p.m. to 12
Midnight?
a.m.
Oh, okay.
Noon to midnight.
All right.
Sorry.
And Tim came on at 10.
Yes.
Anything suspicious about the car as you approached?
Other than the door open.
Did you see the door open when you pulled up behind it or not until you walked up to it?
When I pulled up, got out of the car, I saw the door open, but I couldn't see anything past that. All I could see was the door was open, so we started walking towards the car, and as I got closer, that's when I saw her.
So when you came up on the driver's side, Tim was going around the passenger side. He obviously couldn't see her then, right?
Correct.
Okay. Because he parked on Outer,
Yes.
approached from Outer. You approached from the left. What's the name of the road there?
It's actually Hack Road.
Hack Road, wastewater treatment road. Okay. And only the door was open, no lights on, car wasn't running, nobody around. When did you first see the body?
I don't think I quite made it to the car, to the bumper of the car yet.
Okay.
It was close, but within a few steps of the bumper, maybe.
Okay. So you didn't see a body as you were getting out of your car walking up. It wasn't until you got right up on there until you knew what you had. And what did you see? Tell me about what you saw there.
Well, I had my flashlight out, and as I walked up, I saw the door. I kind of did a peek inside, just to, see if anybody was laying there, I guess. And then I went down, and as I went down, I saw her laying there, and that's when I saw the cord running, and I'm like, uh-oh. So I got a little closer, I looked, saw the cord was around her neck, followed the cord up, saw it was attached to the luggage rack. I'm like, oh boy. So I called, that's when I told Tim, I said, hey, we got a body over here.
After you told Tim you got a body, then what did you guys do?
He came around, did basically the same thing. Checked everything, checked it all out, and then we backed away. He got on the phone with Sean, and Sean said, take it off and start taking photos. So we just went into that mode and started doing what we had to do.
Did you guys check for vitals? Was it, why not?
I don't know. I guess probably not to disturb. There was no movement, and when I looked, there was, from a distance, there didn't appear to be any chest rise. Lips were kind of bluish. It wasn't giving me the impression that it was, that she was alive. So.
So this is a stupid answer, especially given what he has already stated during this interview. He claimed that when he arrived on the scene, the car was a bit warm, meaning that it had been on past 30 minutes, give or take. He then stated that he hadn't seen anyone pass him on the road up towards the crime scene, meaning that it was unlikely that another person had been at the location and had killed Jennifer. He then says they didn't try to save Jennifer's life because they didn't want to disturb the scene, and that he simply didn't see her chest move. If the car was still warm when he got to the location, there was a chance that life-saving measures could have been performed, but they weren't, because Kenneth didn't want Jennifer to live.
So when you started taping it off to protect the scene, Was that just protecting the area around the body, or was that the whole vehicle? Because you,
The vehicle and everything.
okay. And Tim called Sean?
Yes.
Now, tell me about processing the vehicle, what you guys did there.
Like I said, after I took the pictures, I removed the purse. I entered through the passenger side front door, removed the purse, set it on the hood of the car, and then began to go through the purse. As far as anything else within the interior of the vehicle, none of that was, other than a cursory look around, none of it was touched.
Did Tim go inside the car?
I don't believe so.
And what was the purpose of grabbing the purse and looking through the purse?
To identify the driver, to identify the person with the vehicle. I think Tim had already run the plate and came back to a male subject, and obviously that wasn't a male subject. So.
Throughout this interview, Kenneth has purposely used language to create a bifurcation between him and Jennifer. Even if he was attempting to keep the fact that she was pregnant with his child quiet, he knew her well enough to identify her at the scene. He would go on to say that they had been friends for over a decade, and his contact information was found on her phone. Repeatedly calling her the subject and referring to her in a way that he would any stranger that he was writing a report on is off-putting. But at this point, Kenneth doesn't know what the MSP knows. He believes that if he continues down this path, they'll find that it's a cut and dry suicide, and that he is not at fault for what occurred.
Do you remember who the plate came back to?
I think it was Donald Webb.
And that's when once you saw the ID, that's when you realized you knew the person? And Tim did not go in the vehicle, right?
I don't believe he did, though.
Was Sean there when you guys were doing the vehicle?
No.
So after that point, what happened?
Sean showed up and took control of the scene from there. He performed his own inspection. I'm not sure if I or Tim. I don't remember who gave him. I think I did. I think I gave him the note and the ID. And he went up, did his look around, got on the phone with the medical examiner, did his MESI stuff, and basically we just kind of stood by at that point. There came a point in time, and I don't remember the exact time, but I got called away to help Sarah out on a beanie. It was a fresh beanie that she thought she had somebody inside the house. So Sean says, "You go, Tim and I'll stay here, and wait for the funeral to show up.
Did you go back then? Had you been back up there then after you got called out to help Sarah?
I don't know. I didn't.
You didn't, okay. So were you there when the vehicle was towed or any of that stuff? Okay. Were you there when the body was brought back?
No.
Oh, okay.
You know, from the assist to Sarah, I went over to Henry Door School for an alarm over there. Walked around that, checked that building out, and I had to pull my daily to see where I went after that.
So you saw that note before you saw her ID?
Yes, the note was laying folded up right on top of the purse. The purse was open. It was a big, I mean, the purse was probably that big.
Okay.
It was open like this, and the note was laying right on top.
Okay. So it, in the purse, but on top of all the contents in the purse. All right.
The suicide note that Jennifer allegedly wrote is incredibly interesting, because not only does it perfectly illustrate how Kenneth saw his mistress, but it also shows how little he thought about the woman he would go on to murder. When someone writes a suicide note, they tend to leave it in a place where the other party can easily find it. Oftentimes it's left on their person, or out in the open near where they ended their lives, because they want their final thoughts and feelings to be completely understood. The general idea that Jenny had typed a suicide note calling herself a derogatory term and saying that she lied about her child's paternity is far-fetched. But add to that the idea that she left her suicide note in her purse, where it could easily be overlooked, is also ludicrous. Worse still is the fact that the paper was on top of all of her possessions, making it look incredibly out of place. Had the note been left in her hand or on the car seat, that would have made more sense.
Do you know who did the notification to the next kin?
I assume Sean did. It would have been his scene. He was in charge, so.
At that point, Sean knew that you knew her, right?
Yes. When Sean arrived, I told him that you were.
Do you know her family? Tell me about how you knew her.
I met her. Probably more than 10 years ago. When I first started out here, just in my normal duties, we would do bar checks, and she used to frequent the Backstreet Bar over in Holland. I got to know the waitresses and the people over there. She was in there. We got introduced. You know, it was, you know, we just talked. You know, started up a casual friendship and been touch and go ever since. I mean, we talk for a while and then we kind of do our own thing and go our separate ways. And you know, out of the blue, you know, she'll call me or I'll call her. And, hey, what's going on? You know.
Was she working there, or was she just
No,
a patron?
Just a patron. Okay. She knew most of the people that worked there.
Ken is obviously downplaying their relationship, as the entire reason why he killed her was to prevent their affair from becoming public and ruining his marriage. But even still, he concedes that he has known her for at least 10 years, an entire decade, but was seemingly unable to recognize her when she was dead and in front of him. That's entirely abnormal.
How old is she?
I am probably 30, between 30 and 35. I don't know her exact birthday. I don't remember from seeing her ID, so.
Is she a local gal?
The last I knew she lived in the city, but I know that she had gotten broken into a few times recently. She called and told me that, and it was my understanding that she had moved back in with her parents.
Kenneth is directly referencing something that was found in her suicide note, which, if he is attempting to maintain that they were loose acquaintances, is bad. However, he immediately mentions that she had recently reached out to him about the break-ins, and that he had been giving her advice. This could be used to completely recontextualize her repeated phone calls to him. She had called him multiple times over the past couple of months, given that they were in a loose relationship of sorts. He had led her to believe that he was getting separated from his wife, getting a divorce, and that they were casually seeing each other, so there were frequent calls from her to him late at night. But now, instead of them calling each other for a late-night booty call, she was now just calling him to do a home check to make sure that no one had broken in. He was just helping his friend feel safe in her new home, and nothing more.
Do you remember where in the city?
No.
Where do her parents live?
No clue.
Do you know if they're in the area or?
They're in the area. I think it's somewhere in Bridgeport, but I'm not sure. I don't know what the address is or anything like that.
When was it she was broken into?
She's been broken into 3 times in the last. I want to say the first one was April or May.
Okay.
Somewhere in there.
So it's pretty recent stuff?
Yeah, they were all in 2011. They were all summertime of 2011.
Is that why she moved in with her parents?
That's what she did. That's what she told me. I mean, she told me she just couldn't stand to live there anymore. She was just, she just too afraid.
Any idea how long she's been living at her parents?
No.
She told you about these break-ins. Did she tell you right after they happened, or is this just?
The first one, no. The first one was, I don't remember. It was a short time later, not much. The second one, I think I think I talked to her the day after that. And, she was like freaking out. She was like, what am I going to do? She was crying. And I mean, she was not in a good frame of mind. I mean, she was just, you could tell she was really scared.
You know much about it? I mean, was it something where home invasion, she was home, or was it
No.
She was gone?
No. I remember saying, thankfully I wasn't here when it happened.
Okay. So she didn't get hurt or
No.
robbed or anything? Just
No.
the place was being eaten?
Correct.
How often did you talk to her?
It varied. I mean, it could be, sometimes it was once or twice a day. Other times it was once or twice a week.
Okay.
Kenneth continues to downplay the duration and depth of his relationship with Jenny, but once more, his statements only serve to do the opposite. If you're talking to someone nearly every day, or only going weeks between talking to them, you are likely fairly close. Unless you're coworkers, choosing to hang around someone that often would indicate a close relationship. There are very few people who I would talk to daily that I would say I don't know very well, and none that I can imagine seeing dead in front of me that I wouldn't recognize. Kenneth has thought a certain amount of his answers through, repeating the story about the break-in from the note, recontextualizing their relationship. All of that indicates a significant amount of forethought, but not nearly enough to actually make what he is saying believable.
And over the last 10 years?
Oh, it was on and off. I mean, there was quite a while where we didn't talk at all. I just, she was doing her own thing and I was doing mine, and, like I said, it wasn't anything that we just, that we had to talk to each other every day or anything like that.
Was she married, have kids, anything like that?
She was not married, but she was pregnant.
Boyfriend?
Not one she spoke of.
She in trouble with any drugs or anything like that?
Not that I know of. Drank a lot, or drank frequently. I wouldn't call her alcoholic, but drank frequently, but I'm not aware of any drug use.
Was she working?
As far as I know,
What did she do? Where'd she work?
no idea. Some kind of parts supply place or something or other.
When answering questions that involve him, such as if Jenny was in a relationship, he keeps his answers brief and to the point. But the moment that the interviewer asks a question centering around another aspect of her life, he gives a more detailed answer. This is likely because answering these questions feels a bit safer. We've seen more overt examples of this in past interrogations, where a subject will go on an unrelated monologue about something that is tangentially related to the case. They'll often spend a significant amount of time on the subject, which experts believe is a form of emotional relief. Kenneth doesn't want to be talking about Jenny. He has to, because he knows that not talking to the officers will only make people believe that he is guilty. He's used the exact same tactics before, and he's well aware of how the other officers think. But his little unrelated asides are him trying to relieve some of the stress that has already begun to build.
Like auto parts?
I don't know. I don't have any idea what kind of parts they were. I just remember her saying something about having to ship out orders and stuff like that. So.
When was the last time you talked to her?
She called actually last night. She called me. Didn't leave a message. Or no, didn't leave a message. She leave a message? Yeah, she did. She left. She left a message and said, "Hey, what's up? Give me a call when you can." Something like that. And I called her back sometime around 8:00, 8:30, something like that. And I didn't get an answer from her.
Did you leave her voicemail or anything?
No.
This is weird, because Kenneth just describes the voicemail she supposedly left for him. Then when asked if she left a voicemail, he says no. But now he has outright admitted that he would have been the last person she spoke to prior to committing suicide, meaning that whatever it was that she wanted to talk about was probably extremely important to her. In the version of events he wants the MSP to believe, she was on her way to commit suicide in a very strange fashion, and randomly thought to call him about her home safety measures. She was at the end of her rope, not just contemplating suicide, but taking extreme measures to complete it, only to remember she wanted to ask him about how to properly protect herself from burglars. That doesn't make any sense. If he was just a casual friend, someone she would reach out to every now and then when she was worried about her home safety, she likely would not have called him the night she planned to take her own life. because her death would mean that she doesn't have to worry about break-ins anymore. But Kenneth knows that he can't deny that she called him that night, because he knows that they will look over the phone records. He is trying to justify the calls before they are found, and play them off as not a big deal, even though they undoubtedly are. It's clear that Kenneth didn't plan for her death to be investigated as intensely as it already has been. He had hoped they would mark the case as a suicide, then see her note about lying about who the father of the child was, and then move on. That the subject of who the father was would be left at just a random guy named Chris, and he could continue operating the same way he had been for years. The fact that he's being pressed on any of this was not something that he planned for, because even the most basic answers crumble upon questioning.
Did she call you back?
No.
What was her mood or demeanor last time you talked to her?
Not normal. Usually she was a pretty happy, jovial person. She just, I don't know, said she was tired, wasn't feeling good, but just uncharacteristic for her. Usually when we talk, she's just, bouncing off the walls. Yeah, this is going on and that's going on, and yada, 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 but it's been like that for a few months now. When she talks, just something different about her. And, I guess I just chalked it up to, the stress of getting broken into and being back with her parents or in her parents' house or whatever, and, being pregnant. My wife was pregnant, many years ago. She was moody too, so I guess I just kind of let it go with that.
Kenneth would be the only person in Jenny's life who would say this. The way he had characterized her prior to the past couple of months of being, quote, not herself, unquote, is more in line with how she was. During her pregnancy, she was still a bolt of energy, and was incredibly excited about the next phase in her life. Kenneth knows this. He went so far as to insert an explanation to her friends and family members about why she was killing herself despite appearing happy, by saying she was faking it so they wouldn't worry, meaning that either he's lying about how she was acting in the months leading up to her suicide, or that he was so special to her that he was the only person she felt that she could be honest with. Either way, that's bad for Kenneth. Kenneth has been desperately trying to distance himself from Jenny. He has called her the subject, the female, the body, all in an attempt to separate himself from any sort of relationship with her. He has admitted that they talk often, sometimes every day, and now is stating that he, a man who barely knew her by his own estimation, was the only one she showed her real emotions to. This would obviously mean that he's incredibly important to her, which is entirely antithetical to what he wants to portray. Again, his answers are thought out, but only to a point.
Sure. When was the last time you actually talked to her?
Yesterday. Would have been the day before yesterday now, but
It is now Wednesday.
it would have been,
During the day Tuesday?
no, would have been, I think, Monday.
Okay.
Yeah, I chatted with her briefly on Monday.
She call you, you call her.
Don't remember. I think she called me, but I won't swear to that.
During these times, you said her mood kind of changed. She mentioned anything specific that she's having problems with?
No, not really.
What about her health?
She never made mention of anything.
When's the last time you actually saw her in person?
It's been a while. Three weeks or so, maybe.
Okay. And what was the context there?
She was on her way back from somewhere. She was out with some of her friends, I guess, or something or other, and called to see if I was working, and I said, yeah. And she said, hey, let's see you for a minute. So we met, talked for a few minutes, and she went home.
Where was that at?
Where did we meet at? Oh, good Lord. think I met her out at the tire place out at 46. There's a tire shop out there, and I met her out there, just in a parking lot. Like kind of door to door talking.
Was she with friends then?
So,
Okay.
At that time, did you notice anything different about her? I mean, was it her appearance different?
No, appearance-wise, she looked normal. She seemed tired.
How often did you guys see each other personally?
As far as like when I'm not working personally, or just
Anytime.
in person.
Yeah, in person.
As of recently, I'd say maybe once, twice a month.
Okay.
Maybe 3 times a month.
What's recent? I mean,
Within the last few months or so.
did you notice any change in her?
No, I mean, like I said, she didn't seem the same person that I remembered her being. She seemed more stressed, tired all the time.
Meaning, yes, he did notice a change. Kenneth doesn't seem to understand that he is saying contradictory things throughout this interview. He will state that within the past few months, she has completely changed her personality, but when asked if he noticed anything different about her, he says no. He will insist that they had a casual relationship, barely even that, and then talk about how she called him the night she ended her life. These things cannot all be true at once.
Was that, I mean, when you guys saw each other, what did you do?
Talked for a few minutes.
Okay. Is it a lot of times when you're working? Was it personal time?
No, it's always when I was working.
Okay. Where did you normally see her at?
Usually just at a random parking lot,
Okay.
Somewhere in town.
And it was just to stop and chew the fat?
Basically, yeah.
Where was it in the city that she lived?
I don't know.
This is a patently stupid denial. Most of what Kenneth has said thus far has been idiotic, but this has got to be the worst. His whole reasoning as to why they were in contact recently has been that she moved into a home that was the subject of frequent break-ins. These break-ins left her feeling so scared that she repeatedly called him for assistance in making her home safer, so he said. And now when asked directly where she lived, he says he doesn't know. He has already said he has been to her home. He has asserted that he has assisted her in her home safety measures, but now he is trying to claim that he did all of that without ever going to her home and just meeting her in various parking lots around town. That doesn't make any sense. None of what he has said so far makes sense. Even his motive for killing her doesn't make any sense, because he should have at least known that by killing the mother of his unborn child, they could still test to see if he was the father. He works with law enforcement. He knows that genetic testing is available, and yet he believed that if he just insisted in the suicide note that he left at the scene that he isn't the father, no one would ask any questions. That's ridiculously stupid, especially given what he knew about Jenny. He had been friends with her for years. He knew how beloved she was, and the idea that he thought that all the people who adored her would just shrug and accept her murder is insane.
I mean, was it somewhere on the east side, west side?
I don't think it was on the east side.
And I guess what I'm getting at is, she's calling you to to see if she can meet to talk to you? Was she coming from long distance, or did she have business over here, or she'd stop by and talk to you?
She had a lot of friends that, scattered all over the place from what I understood. I never met any of her friends. She never showed up with any of her friends or anything like that. So she lived fairly close, but I don't know, I don't know where she lived.
What kind of car did she drive?
That one is her regular car. I didn't recognize it at the time.
Okay.
There's a lot of those cars, and it, like I said, wasn't focusing on the vehicle per se. I was trying to look inside the vehicle. I was looking past most of the characteristics that would ordinarily stick out because I was busy focused on what was possibly inside or what could be inside. It didn't dawn on me until, like I said, started, putting pieces together, and then I was like, okay, this is her car.
The interviewer did not ask Ken for clarification as to why he didn't realize the car was Jenny's. He only asked what kind of car she drove. We are now 45 minutes into the interrogation, and the stress has begun to slowly but surely ramp up to the point where Blue has begun to answer questions that haven't been posed to him. It's begun to dawn on this idiot that there are multiple aspects of his story that don't make any sense, and him not recognizing her car or her dead body is one of them. So in an attempt to circumvent that question, he states that he was so focused on observing the vehicle that he didn't recognize it. So he is so good at work that even when he's bad at work, he's good at it. Does that make sense? No. Well, you probably just aren't so good at observing that you don't observe the thing that you're supposed to be observing. This is a child-level lie that I would expect from my 5-year-old nephew, not an officer of the law.
Well, anytime you're coming up to a car at night and on a dirt road, you're not really paying attention to the car.
I'm not looking at.
You're looking to see what's inside so
Correct.
you don't get hurt. Did you see any, obviously you don't know anything about drugs or you said she never mentioned anything about health. Did she ever make mention of being on any prescription meds, or was she seeing a therapist or anything like that?
Just going to her doctor's appointments for her pregnancy. But as far as like the psychologist or anything like that, nothing I'm aware of.
What did she tell you about the pregnancy?
Not a whole lot. When I see her, usually the first question is, hey, how you feeling? How's it going? Everything good with, with you and the baby? That kind of stuff. It's none of my business, so I didn't want to pry into her personal life that much. So I just, whatever she volunteered to tell me is what she told me, and usually it wasn't much.
But everything seemed to be going okay with it.
As far as her health was, yeah.
What did she tell you about baby's daddy?
So the majority of the interview has been working up to this point. Again, this is the same night that her body had been found. It's been nearly 10 hours since Kenneth staged her suicide, all for the express purpose of keeping the paternity of her unborn child a mystery. He murdered her in an attempt to ignore his responsibility as a father and negate any consequences from him cheating on his wife. Up until this point, he believed that he had done just that. This question being asked at all would immediately tell him that they know he's the father of the child, that he is the only one in Jenny's life with the motive to kill her, and that these officers are looking at him in connection to her death. They aren't saying it directly, but they are steadily adding weight onto Ken's shoulders. No matter where they go from here, Kenneth's main motivation for murdering Jenny would have been all for naught. If he insists that they didn't have a sexual relationship, that there was no way that he was the father of her unborn son, that everything that he has said thus far in this interview has been true and correct, they will ask him to prove it with a DNA sample, which will result in his extramarital affairs being made public, then probably his wife leaving him and him going to jail for the rest of his life. And if he admits that he was the father of the baby he killed, he will admit to having motive to kill Jenny. His wife will no doubt find out about the affair, and he will spend the rest of his life in jail. At this point, Kenneth would know that his entire charade has failed, so let's watch him attempt to navigate it.
She did. Never said anything about it. So I wasn't aware that she was dating anybody, but yeah.
Is that something she would have told you?
No, not really.
How'd she seem about being pregnant? I mean, you said her health was good and all that kind of stuff, but.
Whenever I would ask her, hey, how are things going, I pretty much got the answer, baby's healthy and I'm doing good. And she kind of left it at that. Not typical for her. Like I said, she was usually a bubbly, outgoing person, talked all the time about anything and everything. And it just, I don't know, it just seemed different. She was just more reserved.
So his initial response is to go back to the original narrative, which is that over the past few months, when he had seen her, she was different, a bit more down and depressed. But because they weren't incredibly close, she didn't tell him why. Again, he was apparently the only person in her life that she would express any sort of sadness or dissatisfaction with, but they weren't close. They barely knew each other, and she only ever called him when she was nervous about the break-ins. Any of the extemporaneous details that he's added throughout this interview are now null. He's going back to his original plan. In past interrogation reviews, we've seen this kind of backtracking occur whenever the suspect is lightly pressed on an issue. They come in with a rehearsed narrative. They begin to stray slightly from it as they get comfortable talking to the investigators, and at the slightest pushback, they revert back to it.
Like you mentioned, your wife was pregnant one time and she got moody. It's hard to tell sometimes if gals are having a hard time, they got all those freaking hormones going and all that crap. And if it's not somebody that you see a lot of times, you may not notice the change as much.
Well, like, other than just an overall appearance of being down and tired. It's, just not her normal runabout self.
Was she taking care of herself though?
As far as I know.
Okay. I mean, you didn't see where she was neglecting herself or anything like that?
It appeared to me.
Okay.
You mentioned earlier, Ken, that she drank quite a bit. Was she still doing that while she was pregnant?
And not to my knowledge.
Okay, you think she changed that a little bit?
I would hope so, but I don't know.
She ran around a lot and had a lot of friends. Do you know some of her friends that might have some insight on how she was feeling? Or
I don't know any. I mean, all I know is her. I don't know any of her, her associates or friends or anything like that. Whenever she would stop out to see me, she never brought anybody with her.
So you've never met any friends of hers?
I guess I can't say never, because when she was frequenting the back street,
Oh,
there were
they have
people.
been in there.
Well, she was friendly with the wait, with the wait staff, but.
Said she moved in with her parents, I'm assuming they're both alive. Do you know if she had brothers or sisters? She ever mentioned being close to anybody like that?
She had a sister.
Older, younger?
Oh.
Did she ever talk about she was close with her sister? I mean, did that, or just remembering the sister?
I think the way it sounded, she was pretty close to her sister.
So, I guess I'm trying to figure out what would cause her to do this. I mean, it sounds like she was a pretty happy person. Sounds like she was comfortable with pregnancy, and sounds like she was employed. You didn't notice any big changes in her, eh? Any thoughts on that?
No. I mean, when I read the suicide note, it seemed to me that there was more there than she was letting on. At least, when she would talk to me, it just seemed like there was more that she was dealing with than what she told me.
Do you remember what she was talking about in the suicide note, some of the things that she was talking? I don't have it here in front of me.
It talked about the robberies, it talked about the pregnancy, it talked about being sorry. I can't recite it for you, but it talked about being a failure, and something about lying to people.
Kenneth is now directing the investigators back to the suicide note, as if it's the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card, that the note she left was so emotional and so entirely personal that it's the North Star in the case. In his mind, he believes that he'd sprinkled in enough personal information that if it were presented to anyone in her life, they would automatically believe it. However, despite knowing Jenny for over 10 years, he was completely unable to capture her energy or spirit. He didn't consider her personality, or even how she would express herself. So instead of a deeply personal letter, where she talked about her depression, she instead spent the entire page discussing how her lies about the father of her child would ruin someone's life. Add that to the fact that the note could have easily been staged. We know this because it was staged, but he's desperately trying to point them in any other direction than him.
What would she be lying about?
I don't know.
I remember it said something in the note about the pregnancy, and I think the name was Chris. Does that ring a bell?
I think I do remember seeing something in there about that.
Does that name mean anything to you? And You know, the obvious question is, did you have a relationship with her? Or is this just something where you guys were just friends?
A physical relationship, no.
You mentioned your wife. Are you currently married now?
Right.
I got.
This guy, I actually have two of my neighbors that are close friends of mine that both have daughters.
Yeah.
That are like, if what Dad doesn't see, Uncle Kenny will, so.
Uh-huh. So that when you talked to her, well, the phone calls, Monday, say 8, Monday night?
No, it was during the afternoon.
Okay. But you guys never talked to each other, it was just trading phone calls?
When are you talking about?
I guess I'm not clear, that's what I'm
The
asking.
last time, well, Al asked when the last time I actually talked to her, where I spoke to her.
Okay.
I believe it was Monday, and it was Monday afternoon. Yesterday, she called, and left me a message, hey, what's up, I'm passing through, if you got time to stop, something along those lines. I called her back a few minutes later, hey, what's going on? She didn't answer, just to say, hey, what was going on, but she didn't answer the phone, so.
Okay, that's what I was confused on. But she never called you back.
And like I said, I was just gonna tell, I was just gonna, send her a hey back, hey, what's going on? But she didn't answer the phone, and I didn't bother to leave a message. I figured, caller ID nowadays, she would know that I called, and if she had time, she'd call me back, but I never heard from her.
All right. What did you guys talk about on Monday when you saw her or talked to her?
Just chit chat. Hey, what's happening? Because I think Monday was my late day. I worked Monday night, but I didn't go until 10. She asked how, I asked, what I was doing, and I said that, just get ready to take my kid to football practice, get him ready, go on to practice.
Did she tell you what she was doing that day or make any mention about how she was feeling or anything like that?
No, I think she said she was at work, but other than
Nothing
that,
unusual?
no. It wasn't a very long conversation, a couple minutes maybe.
And she never talked about a boyfriend or anything? Was she friends with anybody else here at the department?
At one time, she was friends with Kevin, but I don't think Kevin Kratz.
You gotta help me out, Kevin.
Kevin Kratz, he's a sergeant now. Like I say, at one time, way back when I first met her, Kevin and I would occasionally go into Backstreet together to perform our bar checks and whatnot. So she gave me, I would say she knows him, but whether they stayed in contact or not, I don't know.
I was a little bit confused, Al. I wanted to clarify that for some reason I got the Monday, Tuesday mixed up. He actually talked to her last on Monday, but Tuesdays was just messages back and forth. They never really talked to each other in person. Got on the phone.
Oh, okay.
So I was just a little confused on it. All right. Well, just going back over things. Anything that I left out we should cover?
Really?
Now, did you do a report yet, or do you need to do a report yet, or?
My report's done.
Okay.
The interrogator seemingly begins to wind the interview down. He asks Kenneth if there's anything that he missed, like this is a job interview, and he goes back over some of his notes. Despite asking the question about if Kenneth knew the father of Jenny's child, or if he'd been in a physical relationship with her, at this point, he likely believes they are just about done with their conversation, and he's going to be able to walk out of the police department a free man. Sure, things were a little touchy for a moment, but he kept his story, and they will likely just affirm his narrative. The overwhelming sense of relief that he would be feeling in this moment is substantial, but as I am sure you have guessed based on the runtime, he is nowhere near the end. So let's see what happens.
Now, who's going to handle all the evidence and all that stuff? Is it all Sean now?
I presume so, yeah.
Okay. So you're done with it? One of my concerns is obviously we got to talk to you and Tim because it was brought up that you knew this gal. And I've got some questions. When you come up and you see the vehicle and stuff, and there's a lot of vehicles like that, I guess. I understand that. Sounds like you knew her pretty well. I mean, well enough to recognize her.
Okay.
And it just, you hear the plate, you get the note out, you see the name on it, and then you see her ID. What were you thinking? What was going through your head?
Well, as I'm starting to hear all of this stuff, I'm going, the first thing that went through my head is, can't be. And as I'm doing that, I'm going through her billfold or whatever it was. There's her ID, and I'm like, oh, shit, it is.
Throughout this portion of the interview, the police were careful never to confront Ken on some of his more outlandish claims, like how he was so focused on observing that he didn't realize he knew the vehicle he was observing. But after they removed the pressure from him, they bring it back tenfold, questioning how it took him running the license plate, looking at the dead body, going through her purse, reading the suicide note, then finally looking at her ID to realize that it was her. These are small inconsistencies in the grand scheme of what he has done, but bringing them up in this manner indicates to him that the men sitting across from him are not his friends. They aren't willing to look the other way and give him a pass. They are genuinely going to look into the case, and into him.
So, I mean,
How did you not recognize her when you first walked up?
I guess that's what I'm asking. Yeah.
well, given the position that she was in, and it was, I mean, that's the hard part, is she was laying on her back, but the way her head was twisted, I mean, it just, and when I saw the body, I went, okay, body, I go into work mode. Anybody else around? Is there anybody else in the car? Start looking around. No? Okay, everything's good. Got a body, Tim. And, you know, he came over and took a look. Until I started going around doing all this other stuff, the pieces started falling in line. I said, you know, she's, you know, got a bunch of stickers on the back of her car. I didn't see those at the time I first pulled up on the car.
The contacts you had with her, is that the vehicle she normally go?
Usually.
Does she have any other vehicle?
I don't know.
Are you aware of any other vehicles?
When I've seen her, it's always been in that one.
It's always been in that vehicle when you've seen it, okay. You say stickers on the car, what?
Like on the back, just.
Oh, like bumper stickers and
Yeah.
stuff displayed on it? Okay.
But like I said, I was, you know, it's like I told, I said, when I pulled up on the car, I was looking inside for bodies. I wasn't looking at the outside of the car for decorations.
And the stuff that she was wearing tonight, is that typical of what she'd wear when you saw her?
Yeah, it looked like
Nothing unusual?
No.
Yeah, that just doesn't sit right with me either. And I don't mean to sound like an ass, I'm just thinking, how would you not recognize her? It's just odd.
Yeah, I mean, you just kind of go into cop mode at that point. It's just, okay, what do I got to do? You know, start running through your head. What are the things that need to be done? Once I walked up, I saw that there was a body there. I took, you know, a quick flashlight, went like that. Tim, we got a body, and he came over, checked it. I backed away. We started doing our thing. He got on the phone with Sean right away and started doing our thing. I mean, once we started going around the car and, you know, pieces started to fall in, you know, place, it was like, you know, I'm thinking to myself, it can't be. It can't be. And
But
I know what you're saying. I mean,
but you got a good enough look at her to see that her chest wasn't rising and falling, that her lips were blue.
right. I said, I mean, that's not a position that I ever see her in. That's not how, I mean, when I see her, she's got her hair done, you know, I mean, all of that, you know, I don't see her in a disheveled state, so.
Pausing for one moment, but this is a patently idiotic thing to say. A dead body obviously doesn't look different from a living body, unless of course it's decomposed or has gone through some sort of tremendous trauma. Jenny wasn't eviscerated when she was killed. Her body was still intact, and there was no logical reason why he wouldn't have recognized her immediately. But Kenneth is trying to say that he didn't even realize that it was her. Firstly, because she was dead, and she looked different than when she was alive. And secondly, that he went into work mode, and therefore was unable to recognize her as a person that he's known for 10 years. There are plenty of other logical reasons he could have given, like it was dark, or he wasn't the one who ran the plates, he didn't know her father's name, he was tired, anything really besides what he went with. Anything. I personally can't get over the fact that in this interview, he has tried to put forward the narrative that when he works, he just loses the ability to recognize anything or anyone, that he is so good at his job that he becomes horrible at it.
What's going on with your eye there? I'm not gonna get pink eye, am I?
No. I was wrestling, I got a pup at home that's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years old. I was wrestling around with her, and she got me with one of her claws.
What kind of dog you got?
She's a Catahoula Bulldog.
The hell is that?
What? It's called a Catahoula Bulldog. It's a cross between an American Bulldog and what's called a Catahoula Leopard Dog.
Oh, a leopard dog.
It's a distant descendant of the Bull Mastiff.
Okay.
They originally bred him in Louisiana for hunting, and somehow or another they decided to crossbreed him with an American Bulldog, and that's what I ended up with.
So that's a pretty good sized dog.
She's not. She's only about 50 pounds.
Well, is she mature though?
Yeah, wait.
Okay.
But she's got lots of energy, and we were playing and wrestling around, and she got me.
How long ago?
Huh?
How long ago that happened?
Just before work today.
Oh, okay.
What'd you call that dog again?
A Catahoula Bulldog.
Catahoula?
Yeah, and it's Catahoula.
Never
Got
heard
her to
of it.
pound.
Oh, yeah.
Got her to pound. Yeah. And then my other one, my older one, he don't like to play too much anymore. He just stands around and barks when we're playing. He's getting old.
And that looks pretty rad. Did you get it checked or?
No, I said it happened just before work.
As you might have guessed, the story Kenneth just told about his eye injury is a lie. While we haven't gone over how Jennifer Webb was murdered, Kenneth had met up with his pregnant mistress to attempt to dissuade her from putting his name on the birth certificate for their son. She held her ground and said no, at which point he put her in a chokehold, suffocating her and killing both her and their unborn child. He then staged the scene as a suicide, planting a typed note he had brought with him, showing that the murder was premeditated. However, Jenny didn't go down without a fight. When he tried to overwhelm her, she fought back, scratching his arms, face, and scalp, and biting one of his fingers so hard that he bled at the scene, and she had bitten through the tip of that glove and into his finger. This portion of the glove was found on her body, in her clothes, covered in blood and her saliva. She fought for her life against him, but due to his police training, he was eventually able to overtake her. Obviously, his eye injury, the finger injury, and the scratches up and down his arms point to him being behind Jenny's death. But if that were not enough, the officers would speak out against his story, stating that they had seen him earlier during his shift, and he had not been injured. If he had been injured by his dog that morning or the day prior, they would have seen it. But unsurprisingly, the injury seemed to appear during the hour and a half he'd been missing in action.
You need to have a workman's comp. And you said just before work, you worked 6 P to 6 A today?
I left my house right around 5. I usually leave about an hour early.
What did your wife say?
She was still at work. She doesn't even know.
Is he rough with your boy too? Or she rough with your boy?
No, actually not. She behaves around him. She likes, I've trained her well, but I like to play with her because I like to burn off the energy.
Well, that's why I like big dogs. I mean, those little ones I got no use for.
I've got her, she's running about 50 pounds, 50, 55, and then there's another one that's running 80 pounds, so.
Does it bother me at all?
The eye tears up every once in a while.
What, your wife probably left for work?
Time is it?
8.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't want to have her worried.
She knows I told her I was here.
Okay. What's your boy do during the day?
Sleep.
Is he old enough to stay at home?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
He's 11.
Is he home today when you're wrestling around with the dog?
No, he left for practice. I couldn't go to practice today. I'm a coach.
Right, it's football season already.
That's right. So one of my neighbors is also a coach. His kid also plays. So he swung by and grabbed my boy, and they went to practice because I can't be there because I got to work.
When you light up a car, use both your spotlights or you just use one? And what do you guys have? Do you have alley lights and you got white ones on top, or what do you got?
Yeah, there's white alley lights, and then there's white takedown lights, and then the red and blues.
Okay. So do you have the takedown lights on too? Just a spot? No other overhead,
just the headlights
headlights
and
and
spot.
spot. Okay. What about Tim?
It was just headlights and spotlight too.
And coming up to this, you were on patrol doing property checks up there. Did you have any calls, make any traffic stops?
At this point, Blue should be aware that everything he will say and do is being fact-checked thoroughly. What kind of bulb his police car uses, why he didn't notice that his friend was dead in front of him, and especially if he responded to any call prior to finding Jenny's body. The interrogators are being intensely thorough in a way he didn't expect at first, but he's being given the opportunity to adjust his answers. Obviously, we know the answer is no. He didn't respond to any calls, which is why he was found so quickly after the murder. But he doesn't know that they know that, hence why he lied earlier in this interview. The best he could do would be to say that he lied earlier, and that he fell asleep on the job. He didn't respond to any calls for nearly an hour and a half because he took a nap in a random parking lot with no security cameras. Then he woke up, then drove to the location where he found her body. The story is hard to prove, but that's the point. By stating he made multiple stops and responded to various calls, he's only putting a spotlight on his alleged actions, and once they can prove that he is lying, his credibility will be entirely shot.
I think I had two calls before all this went down. One or two calls. I know I didn't make any traffic stops.
Okay. Was this something you pulled reports on?
No.
Was it dispatch stuff? I mean, dispatch calls?
Yeah.
You remember what they were and where?
No, it's on my daily.
What's your call sign?
604. One of them was I do remember one of them was a stray dog on the highway that appeared injured.
I saw a fox on another guy tonight.
There's people running around.
Sean's been in occasionally up there on the other end, there's seen coyotes in there too. But that kind of straight in the Crow Island state game area.
That's
Lots of deer up there.
Are there?
Oh, yeah.
Now, when you guys have contact with anybody, whether it be a traffic stop or, somebody flags you down, is that stuff that you guys put on the daily, all your contacts?
Yeah, it's supposed to.
And how do you guys, and I'm asking because things have changed since I worked down here. Is it all MDT stuff now, or do you get stuff by radio? Okay, you get both?
If you get a radio call, it'll come across the radio and it'll pop up on your screen. If you generate a traffic stop, you can generate the stop directly to the computer, or you can call the stop and have Central do it for you.
Okay. How do you usually do it?
My traffic stops?
Yeah.
Usually I just punch them into the computer unless I get an hinky feeling about something. Or if I don't, if I get, somebody's getting out of the car on me right away or something like that, I'll call it in. But usually I'll just type it in the computer.
And is that to run somebody, or you just do your stop on that?
That's how you initiate it by, you put in the location and the plate, and it generates a call for you.
Okay.
And then you obviously have to switch to a different screen to actually run the plate. Well, I shouldn't say to view the information, because once you run the plate, when you put in the stop location in the plate, it automatically runs through Lean that plate and gives you the registered owner.
Right. Got it.
But it also generates the call.
Okay.
So that everybody else on the county or on the screen and Central can see that you're on a stop.
Okay. And does that also, I know we're going to be going to this finally, does that also do your daily for you?
No.
Your daily is a hand jam?
Yep.
it sounds good, but we've got a few troops that are doing it, and it's kind of, it's like anything, you gotta work out the bugs. So when you came up on this vehicle, did you call it out, or did you run the plate and MDT, what'd you do?
When I pulled up, I flashed the vehicle with my spotlight. I didn't see any movement inside the vehicle. So at that point, I figured either somebody's out walking around or the vehicle's abandoned. So I spun around, came back, and I hit the spotlight on it again from a different angle. Tim pulled up. He hit the spotlight. We got out of the car, walk up, do our thing. He called out that we were with the vehicle, and then he called out that we had a 49 suicide.
So you had one or two dispatch calls around that time, just prior
to, yeah.
But no traffic stops, right?
No.
Remember doing any property checks, any specific ones?
I was all over the place. I did property checks. I did property check at Rob and Glen. I did property checks up on the Wolf Road area, Wolf and Sawyer, up Business District North 81, Trucking District. We got information that they were, stealing truck batteries out of the semis. So kind of playing extra patrol up there. I was in the South Number streets for a while. I get into an area and I drive around for a little bit, and if I don't see anything that draws my attention, I log in as a property check and move on to the next area.
When was the last contact you had with other officers?
Probably 7:45, 8 o'clock, somewhere in there. Sarah and I were here, had a bite of lunch.
You ate lunch here?
Yeah, we were over in the fire department. She and I went in together and got a pizza, had some breadsticks, and we were sitting over at the fire department meeting.
Is that when you had the voicemails going back, or the calls going back and forth between you and Jenny?
I think it was after that. When I left here, that's when I had the voicemail from her, right around there,
And where were you going when you left here?
driving. No, I didn't have any specific place to go.
So you hadn't talked to any other officers after that, and you only had the two dispatch calls, right?
I believe so.
But no traffic stops. Okay. So fill me in on those 3 hours.
Like I said, I spent my time driving around. I was in and out of neighborhoods, checking businesses. I had those, I think it was two, I don't remember what the second one was, one or two radio calls. Came back here for 30 minutes, 20 minutes, something like that. And ate with Sarah, and then took back out, just out hunting around, I saw something to stop, go looking for something to do.
So if you are following along at home, he has no alibi, because the only calls he responded to had no person-to-person interaction. For an entire hour and a half, he was driving around engaging with no one, and only responded to calls that involved animals or driving past various establishments, meaning that his location during that time is entirely up in the air. Moreover, he went dark that entire time. The dispatch and other officers were trying to communicate with him, trying to get a location and see why he wasn't responding to their calls in the area, but he said nothing. Had he been genuinely patrolling as usual, he would have no reason not to respond.
Saginaw still do radio checks?
Yep.
How often they do those?
I couldn't tell you. Sometimes it seems like they're doing 4 an hour, and sometimes they're not doing it for 4 hours, so.
Okay. Were they radio checking you tonight?
Yeah.
And they truly check your status over radio, they don't do it over MDK?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. How often were they checking tonight?
Seem more sporadic. Maybe once an hour. But they won't check you if you tie yourself up on something, if you create a call or
Yeah, if they know you're on call.
dispatch a call or some, well, but then once you clear that call, if you're in line for a radio check, they'll skip you. And they'll do you the next time around because, well, they just had contact with you. They knew you were okay because of your activity on the computer, so.
Before I forget, that note that you found,
Mm-hmm.
was that protected for prints?
As far as I may have touched it, a corner of it.
When asked if the suicide note was dusted for prints, instead of answering the question that was put forth, Kenneth states that he may have touched the corner of it. This is him creating an excuse as to why his prints would be found on the document, just in case they were found. It's highly unlikely that he remembered to handle the typed note with gloves every time it came into his possession. But if he were the one to pull it out of the purse and read it to the other officer, then he could say that he simply forgot to put on gloves when he handled the crucial piece of evidence. The next bit I'll be fast forwarding through, as they just take a small break. Again, if you were concerned with us editing or misconstruing the footage, the full video is available in the description box down below, sans editing and commentary.
When I picked it up, maybe handed it to Sean, I don't know if I had gloves on.
Picked it up from,
The car.
oh, you said you had it on the hood of the car?
Yeah, I'd taken it out of her purse or off the top of her purse, unfolded it, and laid it on the hood of the car.
No, when you got her purse out and stuff, would you have had gloves on then?
Yeah, I had gloves on then.
Okay,
But when I took it to Sean, I don't think I had gloves on.
okay. Did anybody else handle it? Did Tim handle it at all? He touched the note?
I want to say yes, but I don't know for sure.
Okay.
I think he might have.
Anybody else touch it that you know of?
I have no idea.
did you guys bag it?
I don't know what Sean did with it.
Okay. When you say gloves, what kind of gloves?
Rubber, latex.
Latex gloves, not
Yeah.
hatch gloves or anything like that, regular latex gloves.
I got, just sitting here listening through all of this, I got some questions that I can't help but come to the forefront. Jennifer's baby, who was the father of that child?
I have no idea.
Is there a chance that you're the father of that child, Ken?
None. None. Never slept with her.
Again, the subject of who the father of Jennifer's unborn son is comes up, and he's asked directly this time if he is the father. And he is quick to say that there is a 0% chance that he's the dad, because he never slept with her. Like most of the other responses he has given thus far, is ill thought through and stupid. Let's go over why. Kenneth had deliberately drawn attention to this subject in the staged suicide note. He spent nearly half the document talking about how Jennifer slept around, how she was ashamed of herself, and how she had lied by saying a married man was the father, instead of simply saying she doesn't know. The note then goes further to state that she would be at fault for sleeping with said man, even though she was lied to and not the one who broke their vows. By taking the time to discuss the paternity of her unborn child at all, he focused a spotlight on that topic, illustrating that whatever happened to Jennifer had something to do with her son's father. He knew that she had told others that he was the father. He specifies as much in the document itself before trying to obfuscate that fact. The main issue is that Kenneth doesn't seem to realize that the paternity of Jennifer's unborn child was going to be tested after her death, especially since the suicide note discusses the topic so much. His solution to hiding his affair and the subsequent pregnancy only ensured that the truth would come out, and at this point in the interview, he should be well aware of that fact. He works for law enforcement, he's been on the other side of the table, and he knows that they are going to ask for a DNA sample to verify his statements, but for some reason he continues to lie in a way that will hurt the case down the road. I've said this a couple of times prior, but Kenneth's responses and lies are thought out, but to a point. He believes that he is 2 steps ahead of the interrogators, but all of his responses fall apart at the slightest pushback. He only thought about short-term solutions, and because of that, a wonderful woman and her son were murdered.
You've never had a sexual relationship with her?
No.
Is there any reason that she would have told people that you were the father of that child?
Not that I know.
She has.
Come again.
She has told people that you're the father of that child. Her family was well aware of who the father of that child was. Didn't know you personally, but was well aware of what your name was, where you worked, what you did, and everything.
Wow.
So this is an underreaction, because this is what he believed was coming. The suicide note he doctored said as much, as he spent a substantial amount of time trying to say that Jenny had lied, that she was a liar who was ruining people's lives, and that her friends and family should just ignore everything she said about the pregnancy, as if people forget every interaction they've had with the person who committed suicide after they die, and they don't pore over these moments looking for signs. Let's pretend that Kenneth was being honest. Jenny was just a casual friend that he had seen recently because she had a couple of break-ins and was feeling unsafe. They aren't especially close, but he talks to her every now and again. But still, he isn't close enough to know anything about her. He is then told that she's been falsely telling people that he, a married man with children, is the father of her child. He would be shocked, confused, and probably a fair bit pissed. This allegation could easily hurt his home life, cause his wife to leave him, and force his character to be questioned. If this was a false allegation, he'd firmly deny it, say she was lying, affirm he's never slept with her, and demand a genetic test be done. If the DNA test would exonerate him, he would immediately ask for one, because he could show that he was being truthful and expel any rumors, which would completely destroy any motive. He works in law enforcement. He knows that they can easily test for paternity, but he doesn't do that. He reacts as if he expected this allegation, which, if what he said thus far in the interview was true, he should not have.
No possibility of that?
None.
I mean, that's real easy for us to determine, obviously. You know, and now's the time to get that out, if there is. I mean, stuff like that happens. We all know that. We're all big boys in this room. We all know that stuff like that happens. But yeah, that's a concern that I've got is,
I don't know why
her family knew she was expecting, obviously. Apparently due very soon,
I knew
3
she
or 4
was
weeks.
expecting.
Yeah, and they were was apparently no questions at all about it. They were fully aware. Ken Blue, police officer, Buena Vista Township Police Department, was the father of the child. They didn't know much about you. They never met you. But they were fully aware that you were the father of the child. By name, occupation, where you worked, and everything, Ken.
Wow.
Ken is still not reacting to the news and says nothing when the interviewer brings up doing a paternity test. Again, put yourself in his shoes. Let's say he's perfectly innocent, was not the father of Jennifer's child, and is being accused of sleeping with a loose acquaintance. You know you didn't sleep with them, you barely know them, and you are being looked at as a suspect for their murder. But there's a surefire way to prove that they were lying, a way that would immediately result in people looking at the case differently and getting all suspicion off of your back. Wouldn't you jump at the chance to do it? Ken said he never slept with Jennifer, and that there was a 0% chance that he was the father of her unborn child. He's being given the opportunity to prove it, and is completely passive to that, so he ignores that solution and continues to feign bored surprise.
Well, that would explain why we're doing this. I'm not the father of the child. I've never had sex with that woman.
Okay. All right. Well, that's, like I said, that's one of the big questions that comes up. Ken, if you are in this room between the 3 of us, we need to know that. Obviously, as this investigation goes on, we will be able to determine who the father of that child is. And you know, as well as we know, when you're doing an investigation, if somebody lies to you about some insignificant or rather insignificant issue, you got to ask the question about why. You know, why would that happen? Why did that happen? So it may be a little bit uncomfortable, it may be a little embarrassing or whatever, but are we going to make that determination? Is it going to be determined in our investigation? I mean, we will determine who the father of the child is. And when that's all said and done, is the answer that we get from our labs going to say it's Ken Blue too?
I don't think so. I haven't had sex with her, so.
Well, you don't think so, or you do that? I mean, you know or you don't. I mean, there's one way that a child is conceived, that's very apparent. I always know that. Okay. Absolutely no way possible that you could be the father of the child?
Correct.
Ken, it's also our information that this morning there was quite a period of time that nobody could get a hold of you, or last night rather.
Mm-hmm.
They couldn't get you on the radio, different ways, through the MDT and through different ways, they couldn't get a hold of you, couldn't get any response.
In about 5 minutes, correct.
Yeah, we talked like, I thought it was a little bit longer than that, but we don't have the records on that yet, but there was apparently some period of time nobody could get a hold of you. Any idea why that would have been?
I had my radio on the other channel.
Which channel would you have?
Our admin channel. I had talked to Sarah before then.
Change from your main dispatch, you change over to admin?
Correct.
Now, when they do the alert tone thing, does that come over?
Not unless it's on scan, and it wasn't.
Oh, that's the only way it comes across.
Correct.
Yeah,
If it's on scan, it'll scan.
I'm not
the county.
familiar with the radios that you guys have with central dispatch even now, because I don't have one, so. Everything. What's in your arm? Your forearm there.
Probably from where I was wrestling with the dog.
Can you take a look at that? You got any other marks or injuries or anything from the dog?
Just that in the eye.
Can you take your glasses off so I can get a little better look at your eye there? It's right on the inside corner.
Right there, she caught it with her toenail.
Oh, okay, all right. Another thing, Ken, I guess that I'm really having an issue issue with it. I can't understand how you could have driven down there, you could have seen this vehicle of a girl that you've known for about 10 years, that the only time you've ever met her, that's the vehicle she's been in, that she's been driving. You end up parking, you get out on foot, and you see her laying there. You see her, you described to us well enough to know that she's already deceased. There's no reason to do any life-saving measures, because you can tell her, I think in your words, her lips were purple, or no rise and fall in her chest, or whatever. But yet you still don't know who she is. That doesn't make sense to me.
You're talking about a matter of minutes.
Yeah, but I mean, from what you've described in your context with her, I guess I would have thought when you drove down Outer Drive and you saw there was Jennifer's vehicle, I would have think in the headlights you'd have noticed that when you were back a ways.
I mean, that's a common vehicle.
You've met with her at different places. Has there ever been a time that you've met Jennifer down there at the end of Outer Drive? Never have been down there. Always has been in a parking lot someplace,
Public
someplace
parking
else.
lot. Public area.
It should be occurring to Kenneth that he's doing an insanely bad job here. They are laying out the case against him slowly, and as a police officer, he should at least recognize that most of the things that he's been saying are making him look insanely guilty, with the interrogators methodically laying out the aspects of his story that don't make any sense, along with telling him that her friends and family knew that he was the father of her unborn child, and of course discussing how he went dark for an hour and a half. This is usually the time we would see a suspect begin to change their story to remedy any sticking points.
She was from the city, Ken. It was better in a public spot. Why would she go down there? How would she even know that existed down there?
Why would she have told her family tonight that she was going to meet Ken?
I have no idea.
She specifically, they knew.
She called me.
They were expecting her home before anybody contacted them because she was late. But early in the evening, they knew where she went.
I don't know. I mean, she called me. I haven't spoken to her at all today.
She called you and left you a voicemail.
Correct. I returned her call and did not leave her a voicemail.
And she didn't answer.
No.
So her phone will show your call back to her as a missed call.
Sure.
It doesn't. It shows an answered call. Don't show as a missed call. You know how phone you go through the phones and there's received and there's sent and there's missed, and your call to her was a received call. Not a real long conversation, but obviously long enough to be a conversation.
I never spoke to her.
Received call.
So.
How many times did she call you this evening, or last evening?
Just the once.
Just one time? And you?
There were, I mean, when Sean was playing with her phone, after we found her, he sent, evidently, I think there was one or two calls.
But after you guys were out there?
Correct.
Okay.
Prior to that, that's just the once.
One call from you to her?
Yeah.
And one call from her to your phone? And she left you a voicemail?
Yeah.
And what was the content of that voicemail again?
Just said, hey, what's up? I'm passing through the area. If you got time to meet.
Didn't sound upset, didn't sound angry, didn't just, if you got time to meet. Ken, did you call her back and make a plan to meet?
No.
Why would she have told family that she was going to meet you this evening?
I don't know.
And then the two of you end up down there?
I can't answer that now. I don't know.
It's just weird.
I agree with you. But I guess now, I guess her letter makes a little more sense, but.
Her what?
Her letter
What do you mean?
about the married man part.
Earlier in this interview, Kenneth was asked what he recalled of the note. He pretended to have a vague memory of its contents, talking only about how she said she had lied and that she was ruining the lives of those around her, but notably refrained from talking about how the note discussed the paternity of her unborn child. While that portion of the note was the longest and most significant to her apparent suicide, he kept it out of his statement to the investigators because he didn't want to draw their attention to it. He wanted to avoid talking about his relationship with Jenny for as long as he could, so he hoped that by omitting it, he would avoid suspicion. However, nearly an hour after the original question was asked, he can remember the note clearly, and is now trying to use that portion of the note to exonerate himself. Portions of this footage have been muted, as when it was recorded, a police radio could be heard. Again, if you would like to see the unedited footage, it's available in the description box down below.
Oh, and the note
She was talking about me.
Okay.
I have no idea why she would say something
I
like
don't
that.
think she named you in the letter.
I don't recall seeing my name in the letter, but.
Okay. Where's your uniform you were wearing when you worked?
It's in the car.
Can we have that before you go?
Sure.
It's in the patrol car?
No, it's in my vehicle.
Oh, your personal vehicle?
Yeah, take a walk. Sometimes I send them out, but I usually don't at home.
Okay. You don't have a problem with us taking a look at that?
I don't know.
He would have a problem with that, given that when he would give the investigators the uniform he claimed to be wearing the night of Jennifer's death, he gave them a uniform that he had never worn, but more on that later.
The patrol car you were driving tonight, where is it?
Parked in its normal spot.
Okay. Has it gone back out on the day shift yet?
No.
Or is it like an assigned car? I mean, are you the only one that drives?
Yes.
Oh, okay. All right. I didn't know if you guys were shorter cars or.
No. They have plenty of cars now, so.
That assigned cars, so it's.
For the most part, there's a couple of people that double up.
Yeah, but for the most part, that car number.
Sorry, dispatch, I'm switching them out.
The one that drives it. Okay. Did you notice when you were down there at the end of Outer Drive with her there, any injuries to her? Other injuries of any kind? Anything stand out? I mean, you described this cord, but did you notice any injuries? Did you look her over to see if she had any injuries, any?
Just briefly with Sergeant Waterman, we did, as close as we could without falling into the ditch.
And I haven't seen her, so I don't know. I'm just wondering, did you see anything?
No, I didn't.
No signs of any injuries of any kind?
No, because we went, when Sean was doing his MESI stuff, we went back to the body to check, to get, to go over head to toe.
And where was the body at that point?
Still in its original position.
Oh, partially down the embankment? Okay.
It wasn't moved until, to the best of my knowledge, until, the funeral home got there.
And you were already gone?
I was gone by that time.
So the only time you saw the body was in that position in the bank. When Sean was doing his MESI stuff, did you touch the body in any way?
No.
No? You were never that close, or?
No.
Okay, how close would you have ever gotten to, at any point?
Within a couple of feet.
Okay.
3 feet, 4 feet, something like that. I mean, given the position of the body and the slope that was there,
what was the cord thing that was around her neck? What was it?
I don't know, it looked like an electrical cord.
Some kind of a, like extension cord type thing? You remember what color it was?
Dark.
Okay, not bright orange or anything like that, because that's, okay, that seems to be a very common color. Did you touch the cord? Don't sound like you're ever that close.
No, I took photos of it.
Okay, and did anybody else take photos other than you?
Once I took the initial photos and we got back here, Sean took the camera from that camera that had the photos on it from me, and I haven't seen it since.
Oh, okay, so as far as you know at the scene, you took all the scene photos unless Sean took some after you were gone? Okay. But then once you got back here, that would have been, was Sean back here before they removed the body in the vehicle and all of that?
No, that was after.
Okay, all right.
Had she ever been in your patrol car?
No.
You ever been in her car?
Maybe once or twice.
Okay, and what was that about?
Just sitting in the passenger seat talking.
While you're on duty?
Yeah.
You're always single man patrol?
Yes. Most of the time, unless we're working some kind of special assignment.
Anybody ever with you when you met with her?
No.
Did you ever have any physical contact with her?
As far as like hands-on,
Yeah,
maybe an occasional hug.
What was the context there?
Just friendly hug. Hey, good seeing you.
How long ago was the last time that happened?
Good
I
time.
mean, the other day, weeks, months?
Months.
We have to cover all bases here, Ken, and, and some of it, we'll go back and we gotta look at some things. We just wanna make sure that we don't get any surprises.
So now, after basically telling Kenneth that they don't believe any portion of his story and that he had a motive to kill Jenny, they are reassuring him that they are just doing their job. This, of course, is a lie, because all the direct evidence in this case points to Kenneth. They are simply trying to keep Kenneth talking for as long as they can, and assuring him that they don't think that he's responsible will hopefully do that.
And you know the deal.
Yeah.
And I think you can understand why some of the questions that I asked them,
I
because
just-
they do, some things look a little unusual.
I completely understand that. I guess I don't like feeling like a suspect, but
Well, and it's, a lot of times, it's more about
it's getting to the bottom of it.
attorney and kind of heading things off before they get there, answering questions before they're asked, I guess is a good way to put it. And unfortunately, you're the only guy that can answer some of those questions. I mean, you're first on scene at this car where this gal's never been before, that you're aware of, probably has never been before in her life, doesn't even know where it's at. It's not a dispatch call, you just happen upon it because you happen to be in the area and you happen to know her and you happen to be the first one on the scene.
Well, sure. I mean, I get it, guys. I mean,
And there was a period there that, people couldn't get a hold of you. And then we have this situation with the family who knows who you are, knows you as the father of their soon-to-be grandchild.
and I have no idea who her family
And
is.
she's supposed to meet with you tonight.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know what to tell you. I have no idea why. I don't know why she would have said that. Unless she said, hey, I'm gonna call him. I don't know. I mean, I know she called me.
Yeah, again, being straight up with her. They knew she was going to you,
And then
and they knew you by name and occupation and where you worked to be the father, as Jason said, the father of their grandchild that's soon to be delivered.
I have no idea why she would say that. I mean, that's unsettling.
They also knew that she had plans to be in contact right away with a friend of the court related to her child. They were aware of that.
And then we look at this suicide note that you found that's typed. And you know what that means as a former detective. Doesn't mean much, does it?
Yeah.
And it doesn't fit right, especially with how many females you ever know that hang themselves.
I hear you.
The interrogators have now gotten Kenneth to agree with their points about Jennifer's suicide being suspicious, and the evidence that he created and planted being worthless. Kenneth spent a significant amount of time writing and producing a false note. He attempted to put himself in his mistress's shoes to craft the note, sincerely attempting to put as much personal information into the paper as possible to make it seem believable. And despite that effort, he is now being told that it was pointless, that they absolutely do not find that evidence compelling, and that typed suicide notes can easily be planted and faked, so all the work was for nothing. They're forcing Kenneth to admit that his plan was not only poorly executed, but stupid. Full stop.
And Ken, we can't help but think that something went terribly wrong here tonight. There was a discussion, there was a conversation, and it just got out of hand for whatever reason, and something went terribly wrong here tonight.
And I can tell you that didn't happen. Something went terribly wrong with her. That was no part of it.
And, Ken, we're gonna have to go through the whole thing. Cell phone records, text records, email accounts, computers. We'll get video from all the places you were patrolling tonight, and that'll help us establish a timeline, which will be good. We'll get the dispatch records and figure out where you were and when. Do you have an AVL in your car?
What the hell's an AVL?
Okay, apparently not.
It's a little thing the chief puts in so he knows, he can always tell where you were and when you were there.
I have no idea what that is.
Yeah.
So, these things, I'm just telling you, and you I'm sure know this, they're not going to be a surprise to you. Those are things that we got to do. But again, it comes back to, don't let us get surprised here.
Yeah.
Because
if there's something that we are going to find, we need to, it would benefit all three of us here to know that right now. I mean, now is the time to deal with some of those embarrassing things. Now is the time to deal with some of those surprises if we can.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
Okay.
What you got is what I got.
Did she ever talk to you about being abused by anybody? Did she ever talk about being in a car accident or anything like that? She's got some other injuries, Ken.
Yes, sir.
One of the reasons the interrogator with the striped shirt kept exiting the room was to receive information about the case that was actively breaking. Again, Jennifer's body had been found less than 12 hours before, and the other officers involved in the case were constantly finding new damning evidence. Kenneth killed Jennifer by placing her in a chokehold, but she fought back the entire time. Because of that, her body was covered in bruises and marks, indicating that she had been attacked. During this interview, the autopsy was taking place, and the bruises and marks would have been notated.
And again, maybe it's just coincidence, but you've got some injuries too that you have no witnesses for.
You're right. I don't know what to tell you guys. I mean,
Ken, the biggest thing is, just tell the truth.
I know.
Regardless of anything else, just tell the truth. I'm sure you've told other people that.
Okay.
Because the truth will always manifest itself in one way or another, at some time or another.
That's correct.
Okay. So just make sure there's nothing that we don't need to know now. We're not going to try and pull all the tricks on you and all that shit. It doesn't do us any good. You know where you're sitting. You know how all this stuff works. So that's a call you're going to have to make. Okay, we're not going to try and do Yoda Jedi mind trick bullshit. You know that it'd be foolish for us to, because you're going to see right through it. You use those same tricks yourself.
Well, you guys are doing it now, so.
To some degree, it's hard not to. You get in the habit.
Right.
After 20-some years of, but I think that should tell you something about us too, in that obviously you can tell that we're pretty uncomfortable about that, because as cops, we're thinking one thing. As police officers, and a guy that, I don't know how much Al's worked with you, but I met you years ago, don't really remember you, but I know I never had a bad impression. You certainly don't have a bad reputation around here, around this county, around this city. So, here, a guy like me and Al struggling with this right now, because we're looking at one of our own sitting here and going, Parker, how do you talk to a guy about this? And I'm sure you saw it coming, but.
Well, I mean, yeah, I mean, once I realized I knew her, okay, bring it on. I mean, it's gonna happen, so.
Okay. But there's a lot of things that have come up already that, I mean, they're flags, brother, they're flags.
I know, and I don't know why she would have said something like that. I don't know why she would say that I was the father of her child. I don't get that. That totally dumbfounds me.
Well, and maybe you aren't the biological father, but have you talked about trying to help her out or trying to support her or anything?
I told her on many occasions that I would always be there for her. That if, she never told me how or when or who she got pregnant with. I don't know anything about that. But she's a friend of mine, and I would help her out in any way that I could, just like I would help anybody in this building out in any way that I could, male, female, or dog. It didn't matter. They are a friend of mine. I keep my friends close.
Oh, you hear that? Kenneth isn't guilty of murder. He's just guilty of having too big of a heart and being taken advantage of, just like R. Kelly. But if you've been paying attention, this is the opposite of what Kenneth said earlier. He was adamant that he barely knew Jennifer, that she was just a woman he would see at bars sometimes while out on patrol. She was just some woman that would call him due to her home being broken into, but otherwise, they weren't really close or friends. Now he is claiming that when she told him that she was pregnant, he told her that he would always be there for her if she needed him, and that he would have said the same for any person he knew. That could have been the reason she told friends and family that he was the father of her child, because he said he would help her in a generally friendly way. He is stating that she must have misunderstood his intentions, but he would have done the same for any man, woman, or dog. Or parakeet. But otherwise, she would have no valid reason for saying that he was the father of her child. It paints the deceased as an idiot. Jennifer wasn't even under the impression that Kenneth was going to step up and be an active father. She was prepared to raise their son on her own. All she wanted from him was to send child support and put his name on the birth certificate, and that's it. But that was such a high risk for him that he decided to kill her.
And it sounds like she's pretty infatuated with you. I mean, and look at it. You don't know what she does. She's hanging out at the bar, and she's got a young, strapping lad who's a cop that's befriending her. Is it a meal ticket? Is it something where she's just infatuated with you and wants you to be the father?
I don't know. I wouldn't think after 10 years that it would be a meal ticket. We've never gone out on dates. I've never bought her gifts. And vice versa. She's never done that for me either. I don't know why she would say something like that.
She ever asked you to leave your wife for her?
No.
Ever even hint about it?
No, never.
Did she know you were married?
Yeah, absolutely. She knew I had a son.
It's clear you guys had a pretty close relationship.
We talked a lot.
Personal stuff.
Ken, you said you had told her you'd help her out. Did you ever tell her that you'd help her financially with the child?
I told her if I could, I would. I knew she was struggling. She's not making a lot at whatever job she was doing. She wasn't making a lot. So, if a friend came to you and asked you, hey, I need some help, that's kind of was the impression that I was getting. Is that, she needed help, I would help her.
What's your wife do, Ken, for just...
Yeah, not even close.
But you're willing to help this gal out that you just know from talking to once in a while?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she's a friend of mine.
But a friend, it's a close enough friend that you want to help her out with money, but you don't recognize her car or her body laying there in the grass.
Like I said, it wasn't that I didn't recognize her. It was just there were other things going on that were taking precedence over that, and as it started to come around, it all made sense. Then it all started to fall into place, and yes, it was her. And like I said, we're talking a matter of minutes, not 10. We're talking 1-2 minutes, and enough time to be able to do what we had to do. And I didn't really look that closely at her. I mean, I looked at her lips. I saw that her lips were blue. I went down to the chest. It was almost robotic in fashion because that's just how I perform my job. Mm-hmm. You know, when I do my job and I do death, it's a very systematic approach. I've done a lot of death. You know, I've done a lot of cases involving death. First thing I do is I look for signs of life. There were no signs of life. Okay, go to the vehicle and find out what's there. And that's what I did. You know, take your photos, get everything the way it was when you found it, and move on. And that's how I approach everything in this job. I mean, that's just what I do. It's how I was trained to do it. So that's what I did.
How did you feel when you realized who it was?
I about threw up. It made me sick to my stomach. I mean, I had to walk away at that point. I was just like, oh my God, this is somebody that I know. And it's not somebody that just because I've worked out here for 14 years that I know, it's somebody that I know personally. You know, you walk into your friend's house and you find your friend, you know, laying on the floor dead of a gunshot. I mean, it's one of those, oh my God. I mean.
Sure, but I think I would recognize my friend laying on the floor with a gunshot.
And again, from the distance that I was at, yeah. I mean, subconsciously, did I recognize it? Probably. I can't say that I didn't. I know the approach that I took and the method that I took in doing what we had to do to get the scene locked out.
Was she pretty distraught about being pregnant and not knowing who the dad was?
We didn't really talk that much about it, but I think it bothered her. I mean, I kind of left that alone. It wasn't an area that I wanted to delve in. I knew she told me she was pregnant. I would ask how she was doing. I would ask how the baby was doing. We had a couple of conversations about, you know, I'm struggling with not having a house and living with my folks and yada, yada, yada. And I said, if you needed help, just ask. Just ask if you need help.
So she never told you the guy's name?
No.
You never asked?
I never asked.
Is that because you didn't want to know?
I always said it wasn't my business, it was hers.
What do you think your wife would say about this relationship you've had with Jenny?
She knows.
She knows.
I mean, she knows that I talk to her. She knows that we're friends. You know, I mean, obviously there are rules and there are boundaries. She has male friends that she speaks with, and I have female friends that I speak with. You know, it's not like, you know, I mean, it's not a secret to her. She knows.
Okay.
She did not know, the same way Jennifer was led to believe that he was separated from his wife and starting the divorce process. His wife was made to think that Jennifer was just a casual friend who Kenneth vaguely knew. Both women were purposely kept away from each other and had no relationship, which allowed Kenneth to lie to both of them.
Did you and Jenny ever fight?
No.
Even arguments?
No.
Do you think this is a suicide?
I don't have anything else to think. I mean,
Do you know of anybody that would want to do her harm?
No.
I know you said your wife knows about her. Is she okay with this, or does she have some issues with it?
I don't know if she necessarily has any issues with it. I mean, to say that she likes it, I would say is probably a stretch, but because she doesn't know who she is. I mean, she knows her name, she knows that we talk, but have they ever met? No, they haven't. I mean, it's just, I don't know, you kind of don't, you're not supposed to do that.
Right.
You don't bring that, you don't bring a casual friend into your home like that. I mean, then, she's not a neighbor that we frequently hang out with or anything like that.
So would she have any reason to hurt her?
My wife?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. Excuse me just a second, Ken. What do you think I ought to do here, Ken? What would you do?
Do your job. I mean, it's got to be investigated. I mean, if there's any way around it.
Yeah. And it's just, painting that picture, I'm sure you would agree, shit is just fucked up, quite frankly. And it doesn't look real good. So I have to, not just, from the criminal investigation side, but I want to make sure that you're square too, if that's the case. As long as you tell me the truth, all this stuff will check out and we'll be fine. And it's covering you too, you know that.
Yeah.
But again, man, don't put us in a position where something bites us.
Right. Right. I'm with you.
Because it won't be just us. I mean, it'll be everybody at this department, be everybody in Saginaw area that you work with.
Right.
It'll be smack them in the face.
Right. I get it. I mean, I was sitting here, you guys leave the room, and I'm sitting here thinking, why on earth would she say that? And I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer for that. I mean,
Especially to go so far as to tell the family that.
right. I don't get it.
Is it something where she wanted to be with you so bad that if she can't have you and can't have her family, that she's going to end it?
I don't know. If it was, she's never said anything like that to me. She's never given me that impression. She's never, she's never come out and said, if she wants me to leave my wife for her, says she wants to have a relationship with me, that she wants anything. I mean, she's never said any of that to me.
Was she mental?
Not that I know of.
I mean, it doesn't sound like it. I mean, the way you were talking about her,
Right.
it seemed she's pretty.
She seemed like she had her head screwed on straight. I mean,
Sucks.
Tell me about it.
I mean, it's shitty enough for anybody, but especially when it's somebody you know.
Yeah. And then, I know it has to happen. Just, sitting here going through this and, feeling like I'm the one, being accused of doing something to her.
Yeah. And I don't want to go that far to actually say those words. You know that, because
But
it's not comfortable for me.
Right, but it's there.
With all that shit that we just talked about, man, it just fucking stinks.
Again, put yourself in Kenneth's position, but let's say he is perfectly innocent. There is no surefire way to change the course of this investigation. One way that's already been offered to him to prove that their assertions about his relationship with Jennifer are wrong, and that's by consenting to a DNA test. That option was already put in front of him, and he ignored it. But had he genuinely not had a sexual relationship with her and believed that there was a 0% chance that the child was his, he would have jumped on it. This accusation is threatening absolutely every aspect of his life. His marriage would be over. He would likely lose his relationship with his children. He'd be out of a job, and he'd be sent to prison if they found he was responsible for her murder, obviously. And he could make the majority of that go away, at least for tonight, by taking a DNA test and proving that he'd been honest throughout this interview. But he refuses. He just lets the accusations wash over him as if there's nothing he can do.
It fucking stinks, because there's no other way to say it. And it sucks, man. I don't like being in this position.
You and me both.
But I can appreciate that, because I don't know how I would feel if I was in your shoes right now. I feel for you. I do.
That just totally, and one, doesn't seem like her, and two, if it is her, then boy, does she really smell me, because I never saw that side. I never would have expected that from her.
Kim, we need to get it, Jason probably told you, need to get a buckle swab from you?
No, but I know what it is.
Yeah. That's the best we got, Jason, if you want to use that. And I need to take some pictures. I should have stayed in bed.
We didn't have the right consent form, so what I did was, this one is for blood. I just crossed out blood withdrawn by a doctor, nurse, medical technician, destroyed. DNA obtained by Michigan State Police via buckle swab. And then the other one is the trucks, straightforward. Cross that one out. Cross that one out. What color is your pickup?
Gray.
Santa cab, four-door.
It's a four-door Santa cab.
Obviously, you've seen this kind of thing before, and I just need you to print, sign, and put the time down, and I'll have Al sign it. And obviously, you're under no obligation to do so. You know what your rights are. Just simply asking for your consent.
Why is it that I'm feeling more and more like a suspect every minute that goes by here?
Alright, so Kenneth is an idiot. He has obviously been a suspect the entire time. All the evidence points to him. All of his actions point to his guilt, and the two interrogators have spent over 2 hours telling him as much. And yet, when he is asked to sign a document consenting to having his DNA taken so it can be tested against Jennifer's unborn child, he asks why it is that he feels more and more like a suspect when they talk to him. It's because you fucking are, dude. You are obviously a suspect. They've already told you this. Moreover, if what Kenneth has said before was in fact accurate, that there was absolutely no way for her to be pregnant with his child, signing the consent form would have been a no-brainer. He would have happily consented to the test because he would know that he isn't the child's father. This is a standard procedure that should exonerate him had he been honest.
Well, we've kind of discussed the issues, and we've talked about what we're seeing and what we're thinking, and I think you can understand we've got to do what we've got to do. We've got to do this investigation. And sort it all out. Answer as many questions as we can. No different than any investigation that you've done, many of them in your career. Got to answer as many of the questions that are out there as can be answered, and that's what we're trying to do. Answer as many of those questions as we can answer. And our hope is at the end that everything is good. Are you uncomfortable giving the consent? Are you unsure if you want to do that?
I'm just uncomfortable with the whole thing.
Well, I understand that. We both understand that.
Blue knows that if he gives up his DNA, everything he has said in this interview will be used against him. Everything he has said will be called into question, and one of the interviewers already stated that if they found out he was lying about one issue, they would have a hard time believing anything else he has to say. And given the fact that one of his excuses was that he was so good at observing that he simply doesn't observe, that wouldn't be good for him. By signing this document, Kenneth knows that he would immediately validate all their accusations and prove that he had motive to kill Jennifer. His affair would become public, and his wife would leave him with their kids. His reason for killing her would be pointless, as her death proved his infidelity. By not signing it, the investigation would likely center on him anyways. If he was being honest about the fact that he could not be the father, he would happily sign the document just to prove that is the case, but Kenneth is trying to delay the inevitable. Moving forward by either signing the document or not is a hard step, because he's damned either way, but he's trying to delay that by bringing his concerns up to the interviewers.
And I can tell you that sitting on this side of the table for me, it's very uncomfortable for me too.
Sit here and to know that you've not done anything wrong, but still feeling like you did.
Sure, that's a tough spot. But as we discussed before too, the truth will manifest itself at some point or in one fashion or another. And
Sure.
like you said, you don't have any concerns here, so.
I know. I can tell you one thing though, guys. I did in fact sleep with her.
And there it is. Kenneth admits that he slept with Jennifer, which now calls everything else he said into question. He was adamant for 2 hours that she was lying, that she had no reason to believe that he was the father, only to admit that she was correct at the very last second. As a reminder, he planned her murder. He wrote the suicide note. He tried to use her death to erase his infidelity, and within 12 hours, he has to confirm that fact.
It was a while ago. I can't say that she ever told me that this was her baby, or this baby was mine.
How long ago was it? Was the timing right that it could be?
I don't know, I don't even remember. I mean, it was...
So it's our understanding from what we've been told that she's about 8 months pregnant. Puts us back around the first of the year, January-ish.
Guess I never really did the math on it, but... Yeah, I suppose it could be. I suppose it could be about that time. So, if this baby is mine... Wow.
You don't see us jumping up and down, do you?
No, but...
But, as we discussed
I
before,
just-
Kevin, it's,
Now it went from bad to worse, guys, I know.
Well, it didn't go from bad to worse because you're answering a question and getting out ahead of something that we were gonna find out anyway,
Mhm.
right?
I don't know if it is or not, I mean,
But if there's a possibility, that's what we wanted to know. That's
I mean, I know
important
that
that
we-
we know it's possible.
I know that we used a condom, I know that she said she was on the pill.
Before I do this, name on here. B-L-E.
UEW.
U-E-W.
I guess I just didn't come out with it in the beginning because, you know, my wife and.
We understand that, Ken, we understand that. I think I told you before, that's a very sensitive situation, and we understand that.
Something on my head too.
Just a little bit of a scrape or something, right on the edge of your hairline there.
They have mosquito bites.
Yeah.
It wasn't a mosquito bite.
Did she talk to you about the possibility that that was your job?
Not really. I mean,
Tell me what not really.
she kind of hinted at it, and I said, Jen, I said, well, it's possible. I said, you were on the pill, and I used the condom. And she said, so I'm saying is it's possible. I said, okay, fine. It's possible, it's possible.
Did that concern you?
Yeah. Of course it concerns me. But, you know, at that point, the deed was done. What are you gonna do about it? I mean,
Now Ken's story has changed from he couldn't possibly be the father and barely knew her to being that she hinted that he could be the father. Since the quote, deed was done, there was nothing he could do about it. This would be a reasonable answer if he was anywhere but an interrogation room being questioned about a highly suspicious suicide. And what could he have done about it? I don't know. Maybe kill her, stage the scene to make it look like she killed herself in a ridiculous way, then leave a suicide note insisting that she lied about the paternity of her unborn child. Maybe. Given his continued denial about the paternity in question, his original narrative was benefited by the note she left, which makes him look even more guilty.
When did you have that conversation with her?
a few months ago.
So she was well into it by then?
Yeah.
She asked for a paternity test or anything?
No.
She hadn't mentioned anything about that? Had she mentioned anything about friend of court? To you?
I think, yeah, she did once. She said something about, you know, she was gonna have to go and how did she phrase it? She said, from the people that she's talked to, she's gotta give them a list of 5 people that she slept with who could potentially be fathers, and, you know, they would then have to be contacted, and I presume vocal swabs and DNA tests done to prove who the father was, type of thing.
Kenneth keeps offhandedly saying things that 1, cannot be proven to have happened, and 2, align with the narrative of her suicide note. In the note, Jennifer was seemingly disparaging herself for having sex with various different guys. She said that she did sleep around, and couldn't be sure who the father was because of that, but there are no reports to verify those claims, and given that the person stating them as fact murdered her and tried to smear her name after the fact, they don't hold any water.
But did she come out and say that she was going to come after me for child support? No.
When she talked about having to submit a list of 5 names, did she indicate you were gonna be one of them?
Mm-hmm.
Were you gonna be on the list?
Yeah.
So, if that had all gone through and you are the father, it would have been determined through that, obviously.
Sure.
And you said earlier that your wife was aware of your friendship with Jennifer.
Mm-hmm.
Was she aware of any of this other stuff?
No, she wasn't. You know, many years ago, I had an affair
Obviously, this is not true. Cheating is not something that just kind of happens, especially in the way that Kenneth is claiming. Jennifer had known Ken for years, they had been casual friends, and he deliberately began lying to her in order to foster a romantic relationship. He told her about his marital woes, said he was separated from his wife, and actively pursued a relationship with her. That is not an accident. That's a deliberate and calculated pursuit. But Kenneth doesn't see his own relationship in this circumstance. He doesn't like having to deal with the consequences of his own actions, because it's a reminder of his own faults. His wife had already forgiven him for one instance of cheating, but he said it took her a considerable amount of time to trust him again. He likely had to work in order to regain her love and trust, and he disregarded that easily, believing that he could keep Jennifer and her apart. Jennifer's pregnancy threatened that. He likely figured his wife wouldn't forgive him a second time, and that he would be forced to uproot his life and take care of another child. He would have to pay his wife alimony, their children child support, and Jennifer's child support as well. Instead of him owning up to his own actions, realizing that this was a mess he made by himself and has to take responsibility for, he opted to kill Jennifer instead. He thought he could use his sway with the police to ensure that her death was ruled a suicide, that he could keep his affair and the resulting pregnancy under wraps, and move on with his life as if nothing happened.
I don't remember the condom breaking.
Where was that?
That was on my personal time.
At her house, or? Okay.
We met in the park.
Did the condom break?
I don't know. I don't think it did. It didn't seem like it did when I removed it, but who knows?
Did your conversations with Jennifer about the father of the child ever get into other possibilities? I mean, did
As far as names.
But I guess, she would know whether there's other possibilities of being the father or not. Did she ever talk about that?
She said I wasn't the only one,
Okay.
but she didn't tell me who. She didn't give me names of other guys that she slept with.
But she didn't say that it can't be anybody but you, Ken.
Right. And I apologize for that. I should have said it up front, but
Well, I'm sure, Ken, that you can appreciate that. The bigger problem is, big deal, you slept with her. Okay. The bigger problem is now, what am I supposed to believe?
now it looks like I killed her. And all I can tell you is I didn't. I didn't have anything to do with it.
But again, don't let something come up and bite us like it just did. Because this was an easy part. That part is uncomfortable. I don't want to say easy because it was uncomfortable, but it's small potatoes. But if there's something else that we need to know, now's the time.
You got it. Have I been in her truck? Yep, been in her truck. Told you that. Yeah. Have we had sex? Yep. Is it my baby? I don't know. They'll tell me that. From that point on, everything you got is what happened.
Is there going to be anything on your uniform, on your clothes, that's going to mean anything, one way or the other in this? Is she going to have any other unusual injuries that need to be explained?
Al, I don't know. I wasn't there.
Ken, let me see your arm again. You know what that looks like? Well, if I were to grab you with my fingernails, what would I leave? Was there any possibility that her fingernails are going to have any DNA underneath them?
As far as I know. I mean, I wasn't there.
Okay, all right. I just,
Yeah.
those red marks, they look like they could be finger marks. And that's one of the things that autopsy they're gonna do is scrape all of her nails and check all of that stuff. It's just, Ken, that, I told you before, my hope is, you and I have now worked together a lot. We've had some association, it's always been good. I hope this association ends up good, I truly do. But we've got to do our job, we've got to do a thorough investigation on this, we've got to answer just as many questions as we can answer about this. And I hope it all ends up good, but we're gonna dot all of the i's and cross all the t's as we go through this, so.
Yeah.
There's really not much of anything that we can't try real hard to deal with if we know about it up front, if we know about it ahead of time.
I understand.
Like Jason said, the issue about you having slept with her is, in the scope of possibilities here, pretty minor.
It's one of those things that if we get out in front of it, we can make it a non-issue. But if it's something that comes up that shows deception, then it just casts bad light on everything.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to tell you. I wasn't truthful, and I'm sorry.
Is there anything else we've talked about that you haven't been truthful about?
No.
If at some point in this investigation we felt that it was necessary to have you take a polygraph related to some additional issues, would you be willing to do that? What would that show us?
Hopefully that I'm telling you the truth. I aired my dirty laundry.
What should I ask you on the polygraph, Ken?
You can ask me whatever you want to ask me.
I'm asking
What would you
what would
ask?
be the easiest way to clear all doubt about anything.
Did you sleep with her? Yep. Did you kill her? No.
Anything else?
Did you meet her tonight down at the end of Outer Drive?
Nope.
Did you have a phone conversation with her tonight and agree to meet somewhere?
We attempted to have a phone conversation.
Is it possible you are the father of that child?
Well, I slept with her, so yeah, I'd say it's probably possible.
Following the interrogation, the investigation into Jennifer's death continued, and even more evidence was found that pointed directly to Kenneth. As mentioned, Jennifer had bitten Kenneth's finger during the attack, biting off the tip of his glove and biting into his finger, causing it to bleed. The tip of the glove with her saliva and his blood was found inside of her clothing. Meanwhile, his blood had been found throughout her car, on the extension cord that had been tied around her neck, on her clothing, and in his patrol vehicle. After Kenneth turned in what he purported to be the uniform that he was wearing the night of the murder, they searched his vehicle and were able to find another uniform, stashed beneath the front seat of the car. This uniform was also covered in his own blood, likely from the finger injury. The 3 items that had been found 200 feet away from the crime scene were also tested as well, and the cigarette, while the necklace charm and bloodstain matched Jennifer. They would go on to dust the suicide note for prints, and, unsurprisingly, found none of Jennifer's on the note. This would be something that she would have handled, given that it was her final goodbye to the world, yet they found that she had never touched it. Meanwhile, the only fingerprints found on the note were Kenneth's, made prior to Jennifer biting his finger, proving premeditation. A search of his electronics revealed that in the day prior to Jenny's murder, he had reportedly searched topics related to suicide and killing someone via chokehold. Shortly thereafter, Kenneth was arrested and charged with first-degree premeditated murder, as well as assaulting a pregnant individual, intentionally causing miscarriage or stillbirth of a fetus or embryo, and 2 counts of possessing a firearm during the commission of a felony. Kenneth maintained his innocence and pleaded not guilty, despite the deluge of evidence against him. His public responses seemed to state that all the evidence against him had been planted and he was being framed. His sister would also state this publicly, saying that there were various members of the police force who would benefit from Kenneth being out of the way, but refused to say anything more than that. Nearly a year after Jennifer's murder, Kenneth would go to trial. His lawyers had the unfortunate task of trying to defend the man, despite being given virtually nothing to work with. He tried to attack the veracity of the evidence, and to point out that certain procedures hadn't been followed in the investigation, notably the fact that Kenneth was allowed to participate at all. He also stated that there was no physical evidence that proved that Kenneth had harmed Jenny. It pointed to the fact that none of her DNA was found on his person. As for his DNA being found in her car, and the glove tip with her saliva, they ignored that entirely. His arguments were incredibly weak, and the jury only took 2 hours to find the former police officer guilty on all charges. Since the conclusion of the case, Kenneth has attempted to appeal his conviction a number of times, stating that he was wrongfully persecuted, but each time, those appeals were denied, as the evidence in the case was truly overwhelming. Jennifer Webb deserved to live, and her son as well, and Kenneth still continues to try and dodge any responsibility for his actions. If you've made it to this portion in the video, thank you for watching, and also thank you to those who requested this story. This video wouldn't have been possible had it not been for your support, and the support of our patrons, who ensure that we can dedicate our time to YouTube without having to worry about monetization. If there is a case you would like to see covered, or a story you would like to bring more attention to, let us know by emailing me at dreading.official@gmail.com. We're constantly sorting through emails, picking new topics, and adding them to our list of stories to research. With that concludes our Hollow Week uploads. We hope you enjoyed them, and remember, stay safe.